Part 39. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 382. A large number of plots flooded into her mind, and Lily endured a headache. After absorbing the plots and memories, she finally knew the identity of the female voice who spoke before. It was her sister in this body this time, Qin Yazi. At the beginning of the founding of the Tang dynasty, the grandfather of Lily's body was named the second-class loyal and brave uncle, and he was hereditary for 3 generations. The Qin prince married the Chen family and gave birth to 2 daughters and 1 son. The eldest daughter was born with poor health. There was an expert. It is asserted that 18 is a hurdle for her. If she can get over it, her life will be smooth from now on. If she cannot get over it, she will naturally die. Because of such a curse on her head, the eldest daughter of the Qin family did not even have a serious name when she was a child. She had to give her daughter the nickname Lily when she grew up, fearing that she would be unhappy if she gave her a formal name. Bo couldn't bear it, but it ruined her luck. The other second daughter born to Chen is completely different from Qin Beihe. She is healthy and beautiful. She is 2 years younger than Qin Beihe. She is only 15 this year. She has been loved by her family since she was a child and has a sickly personality. The eldest sister is completely different and grew up arrogant. She was seriously ill a few days ago, and she seemed to be a changed person. When she woke up, she started to make trouble in the house. Qin Yazi had been engaged to her aunt's son since she was a child. She was supposed to marry her to her aunt's house half a year later. This cousin was supposed to be a perfect match. The two grew up together since they were childhood sweethearts. However, Yazi suddenly changed her mind and no longer married her cousin Duanzheng, whom she had always loved. Instead, she insisted on marrying Du Linyu, the eldest son of Nanping Marquis. And this Du Linyu fell into trouble with another concubine daughter of the Qin family at the 7th princess's hairpin ceremony half a month ago. Just when the two families were having a headache and didn't know what to do, they made trouble like Qin Yazi. As soon as something goes wrong, the daughter of the Qin family who fell into the water was named Qin Yeu. It turns out that the mother was Chen's companion when she got married. But he climbed into Prince Qin's bed while Ms. Chen was pregnant with Qin Beihe. In the end, she got pregnant successfully. Just because this girl stimulated Chen moved her fetus, causing Qin Beihe to be in poor health after birth. Chen resented the mother and daughter for harming her own mother and daughter, so she treated Qin Yeu very mean. Qin Yeu also has a gloomy and eccentric personality. She and Qin Beihe are only 2 or 3 months apart in age. But she didn't expect that she was 17 years old, and her aunt never talked about her marriage. This was simply unbelievable in a wealthy family. She thought about it and prepared for her own happiness, and then she found ways to dance with Du Linyu. Water things happen. I originally thought that the marriage would be a natural one, even if her status was too low to marry her as the first wife, but as long as she jumped into the river with Du Linyu, even if she did not become the first wife in the end, she could at least become Du Linyu's concubine, but she didn't. Thinking that Qin Yeu seemed to have forgotten what happened before when she woke up. She even forgot about her original intention to become Du Linyu's concubine. Instead, she kept saying that she would rather be a poor man's wife. Don't come as a rich man's concubine. Qin Yazi was making noises about marrying Du Linyu again, and when there was a big commotion at home, Ms. Chen, with a headache, led a group of Qin family members to come to this Tang dynasty temple with the same excuse as the Marquis of Nanping, who was registered as the protector of the country. Discuss this matter. When Lily entered this mission, the first person to call her sister and ask her to help was her biological sister Qin Yazi. In this plot, the original owner is the most inconspicuous one. Qin Yazi later fought fiercely with Qin Yeu to marry Du Linyu, but all this had nothing to do with the original owner, because Qin Beihe soon entered the Huguo temple. Was defiled until death by Duanzheng, Chin Yazi's original fiancé and the original owner's cousin in the original plot. It can be said that in addition to having the memory of childhood, the original owner was almost the cannon fodder at the beginning of the real battle between Yuan Yazi and Yuan Yeu. She died again before she really appeared on the stage. She died in a very unbearable manner. In the end, it was concluded that he would not die until 18 years old, and because of the loss of virginity, the body could not be buried in the Qin family. It was precisely because of this that the original owner was very unwilling, and this was why Lily's mission took place. Judging from the plot and the aphrodisiac she had taken before, Lily was sure that the death of the original owner had something to do with Yuan Yazi. In her memory, she could even vaguely recall that there were traces of Qin Yeu's involvement in the matter. Qin Yazi originally wanted to plot it. Qin Yeu wanted to make her and Duan Zheng become husband and wife, so that the engagement relationship between her and Duan Zheng could be transferred to Qin Yeu, but unexpectedly, she had been growing up in the back house and was supposed to be a little concubine with no knowledge. It was as if she saw through Qin Yazi's tricks at once. In the end, she not only escaped Qin Yazi's plan, but also tricked Qin Beihe into drinking the cup of wine with aphrodisiac. Qin Yazi was also present at that time. After seeing Qin Beihe stupidly drinking the wine, she simply ignored the mistake and coaxed Qin Beihe back to the room to fall asleep. She also used her own name to invite her cousin Duan Zheng over and tricked him into drinking the potion too. Let him be unable to control Qin Beihe. Qin Beihe's body was already weak and she could not withstand the torture, so she could not survive it. The aphrodisiac had strong medicinal properties and she could not bear it, so she died naturally. Finally, Qin Yazi brought Chen and others to catch the adulterer. Seeing her eldest daughter being tortured to death by Duan Zheng, Chen almost went crazy and naturally broke up with the Duan family. Duan Zheng was carrying a Qin Lily, of course. The marriage between Duan Zheng and Qin Yazi could not continue. The two families almost did not become enemies because of their in-laws. Qin Yazi used her sister's life to get her wish and terminated the engagement. The final development of Qin Beihe was not the same. New. After receiving the plot, Lily let out a long breath, feeling an unknown anger rising in her heart. Just because of Qin Yazi's calculations and Qin Yeu's frame-up, Qin Beihe lost her life inexplicably. No wonder she hated it. The key is that Qin Beihe died, and as a result, she also swallowed Li Yangzi. If there is any deep love and hatred, forget it, but I didn't expect that just because these two women plotted against each other, I ended up becoming the unjust ghost. Qin Beihe felt very unwilling. Why would everyone use her as a target just because she would not live to be 18 sooner or later? Just because she was born short-lived, everyone did not regard her as a human being, and her death was unclear. Qin Yazi had ulterior motives. Although she did not deliberately plot against herself at the beginning, in the end when Qin Beihe was hit by the attack, she not only did not think about saving her sister, but she made the mistake instead, causing Qin Beihe to die and let her sister die in such a miserable way. Qin Beihe was very resentful at such a vicious person. Sister, Qin Beihe will never die in peace. The other one is Qin Yeu, who is not a good person either. She knew that Qin Yazi was scheming and that there was something wrong with the glass of wine at that time, but she did not spill the wine. Instead, she coaxed Qin Beihe to drink the wine. She was also one of the culprits. Neither of these two people is a good person. Qin Beihe hopes that even if she ends up not being able to survive until the age of 18, she must get rid of this bad breath before she is 18 and let these two people scheme against her. And to pay the price, even if she dies, she will never die because of these two people's dirty plans. Lily opened her eyes and sneered twice. She also had the same idea as Qin Lily. She suffered a big loss this time. She would not let go of either Qin Yazi or Qin Yeu. Thinking of what Qin Yazi said when she was drowsy when she entered this mission, Lily felt even more angry. She originally completed the mission to fulfill the original owner's wish, and did not want to force anyone to a point where they could not survive, but since this time I was harmed in such a scene, so I naturally wanted to get my money back with profit. Chinyazi seemed to be a different person after a serious illness a few days ago, and her personality was much more restrained than before. This kind of scene is too familiar to Lily. She had it when she entered the body of a twin in the first 2 missions. After such a situation happened, Lily guessed that Chinyazi's change of temperament was either due to time travel or rebirth. Judging from the look of resentment she showed from time to time when she wanted to break off the engagement, the possibility of her rebirth should be higher than that of Chinyazi. The possibility of time travel is higher, because people who have just traveled through time should not have any deep hatred for this dynasty, and it is impossible for those series of weird behaviors to occur. As for Chinyu, she lost her memory after falling into the water, and she no longer behaved as stupidly as before. Not only did she look like a different person, but her methods were much more decisive and ruthless. Lily guessed that her situation was similar to Chinyazi's, wasn't it? To be reborn is to be transported through time, and she does not rule out the possibility that there may be other missionaries in this mission. After all, Li Yangzi also appeared in this mission. He left again before he could tell Lily what he wanted to tell him, which made Lily even more worried about whether his appearance was due to the presence of other missionaries. Suspicion, but it was a pity that Lily neither knew his identity nor where to find him, and her heart was burning with excitement. After lying in the side room for a while, there was another sound of footsteps outside, and Chen's low voice came, "Even if Lily doesn't wake up, it's time to leave, otherwise if you get up late, you may not be able to return to the house today. Mom, my sister is weak. If she rushes on her way, it may not be good for her health. Anyway, Mrs. Du from the Nanping Marquis is also resting in the temple. Mother, why don't you send someone back to the house to report the news, and rest in the house tonight?" "Well, okay," Chinyazi's coquettish voice sounded. Even through the door of the wing, Lily could imagine Chinyazi pulling Chen's sleeves and shaking them. She felt a wave of bad breath surged upwards, and before he could speak, he felt dizzy for a while. In the end, he couldn't hold on for a breath and passed out. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 383. Before her consciousness sank into darkness, Lily only had time to curse this mission of trapping people and Chin Lily's dilapidated body that might die at any time. After all, the people from Uncle Honggaiong's mansion stayed just like the people from Nanping Marquis mansion. The reason was that Lily almost died in the temple that day, and Mrs. Chen was almost frightened when she came in and saw her daughter's angry look. It happened to be this time. An old monk in Hyogyo Temple was proficient in the art of Kiwang. He checked Lily's pulse and prescribed medicine for her. This delay naturally meant that it was too late, and Mrs. Chen only had a female guest temporarily staying at Hyogyo Temple. Staying temporarily, preparing to return home tomorrow. Lily didn't wake up after being given medicine. When she opened her eyes, she felt like she was being held in someone's arms. The surroundings were quiet. When she opened her eyes, she saw a purple robe with dragon patterns embroidered in front of her. The exquisite embroidery made her face feel uncomfortable. A hand was gently caressing her back. Sandalwood was burning in the room, and the atmosphere was peaceful. "Are you awake?" There was no sound around. The maid keeping watch outside didn't know whether she was asleep or not watching outside. When Lily heard Li Yangzi's voice, her eyes couldn't help but light up, and her pale face showed a bit of joy. She was about to open her mouth, but unexpectedly she coughed several times. Li Yangzi reached out and patted her back. After a while, Lily gradually regained her breath, and said happily, "Why are you here?" I don't know if the two of them had a close relationship. When Lily spoke to him again, she didn't look awkward as before. Instead, she felt a bit intimate. She grabbed Li Yangzi's sleeves and said anxiously, "What did you say today, Why do you want to tell me about the mission? Without asking this question clearly, she couldn't feel at ease for a moment. Li Yangzi let her hold his sleeves. He turned around and used his other hand to turn the light brighter. It wasn't until the room was much brighter than before and Lily could clearly see the cold expression on his face that she let go of her hand in embarrassment. There was an accident on this mission. He had a very serious expression on his cold face. He held Lily a little higher and let her lean on his chest. Then he said calmly to Lily, "Chin Lilies, this body cannot live past the age of 18, and even if it is alive after the age of 17, it will just sleep like a living dead." Lily blinked. It's rare to see his serious expression, and I always feel that Li Yangzi's appearance is much more real than the cold and indifferent appearance before. In the past, he didn't have a trace of human fireworks, and his appearance like a high god made people feel reliable. But people only dare to look at it from a distance but not dare to get close. Although it still looks as refined as before, it looks a bit gentler than before. The appearance is still the same as before, and even the temperament is the same. It was almost the same, but Lily just felt that he had changed. After Li Yangzi said this, Lily looked at his exquisite and unusual face and couldn't recover for a moment. She couldn't help but stretched out her hand to touch him, but because her body was so soft and weak, her hand only touched his chin, and then fell to his chest. This action made both of them stunned, and Li Yangzi's ears slowly his face began to smudge with color, and the red vines began to crawl towards his cheeks along his jade-like neck and ears. Although he still had a cold face, his eyes showed a bit of enchantment. The hand on Lily's waist tightened unconsciously, his lips pursed again, and he turned his face away. Under the waxy light, half of his side face looked like jade, and his upturned eyes under the long and curled eyelashes were fast. There was a flash of darkness, and then he lowered his eyelids again, his lips under the high bridge of his nose also pursed, and his chin became extremely tight. What did you just say?" Lily's ears were a little hot. She asked unconsciously. Then she remembered what Li Yangzi just said and almost couldn't help but jump up. "I originally thought that this mission was deceiving enough, but I didn't expect that the even more deceiving part is here. Qin Bei's body can't live for more than a year, and even after she turns 17, she will often fall into a drowsy state like a living dead. If this is the case, what is her mission to do?" At this moment, Lily had no intention of looking at any handsome men. She couldn't help but lick her dry lips, and asked with a bitter look on her face, "What should I do? Now I have no other choice. I am also trapped in the mission." When Li Yangzi said this, he looked back at Lily, his eyes calm. He did not blame Lily, but explained the fact very seriously. But his tone made Lily feel a little embarrassed and guilty, but Lily was keenly aware of the words "there is no way now" in his words. If he had a way, then because of himself. If you did something like that to him and trapped him in this mission, he should have something to do. When Lily thought of this, she scolded Yuanyazi and Yuanyao once again. She didn't want to die, nor did she want to fail the mission. She had gone through so many missions along the way, and she didn't want to be killed when she was 100 steps away. He failed after only 90 steps. Then what should I do now? A look of anxiety appeared on Lily's face. When she thought about it, she couldn't help but want to stab Yuanyazi and Yuanyao to death with a knife. There was a look of struggle on Li Yangzi's face. Lily raised her head and glanced up, feeling some hope inexplicably rising in her heart. "You have a way, right?" No. Li Yangzi hesitated for a moment, and then shook his head. His handsome face showed a bit of embarrassment and guilt. Lily knew that he was lying at a glance. Now she hurriedly wanted to sit up and move around. Li Yangzi climbed on top of him, hugged her, and easily picked her up and put her on him. Lily didn't have time to thank her. "There must be a way, you have a way, help me, I will never fail my mission in the future. I don't want attribute values this time, please. There is really no other way. This time, I am left on the mission, which means that I can no longer do many things. The only thing that can help you prolong your life is to use myself as a proxy to prolong Qin Bei's life. This opportunity for body life. When Li Yangzi said this, he paused and shook his head with a serious face. That is absolutely not possible. She didn't expect that she would get this answer. Lily suddenly didn't know whether to be happy or sad. She was happy that she had found a solution, but sad that she had also fallen into a situation where she needed to rely on her one day. Only by gathering yang and replenishing yin can you survive. This kind of thing has never been encountered in the mission of cultivating immortals, but it was encountered in a bloody house fight plot. She didn't want to die, and she didn't want the mission to fail like this. She wasn't willing to accept it. What's more, there are still many things she wants to do. She also wants to wait until she is strong to fall back into the story of the sea and look at the young man who died to save her life. She can't do it before she completes it. That wish died so easily, and various thoughts flashed through Lily's mind. Anyway, without Li Yangzi's help, she would not have been able to keep her innocence after so many missions. What's more, she had already eaten up Li Yangzi and wiped it clean today. Now when it was about whether she could continue to survive, she couldn't care less about those insignificant little things. The most important thing was not herself, but how she could convince Li Yangzi to help her. Lily took a deep breath, her hands trembled, and she carefully touched Li Yangzi's chest. Lily found that he was wearing clothes with a sloping collar. Such clothes could be taken off with just a gentle tug and unbuttoning of the belt. "Didn't I say that I would be responsible today?" she whispered. Although Li Yangzi had expected that she would agree, he didn't expect that she would actually say this when she opened her mouth. The corner of her mouth twitched fiercely. There was a hint of hesitation and struggle on his face, which made Lily feel a little happy when he saw it, and then continued, "I don't want the mission to fail. After all, you are also trapped in this mission. If you want to leave this mission, you should. I will complete the mission, right? Do you want the mission to be completed?" Li Yangzi's eyelids twitched, as if he was persuaded by Lily, and he nodded with some struggle. When Lily saw him like this, she breathed a sigh of relief. "What's more, it has already happened once, so don't be shy." Li Yangzi took a deep breath, veins on his forehead jumped up, and turned his head away without making a sound. Lily felt a little unsure and put her hand into his clothes. "I will be very gentle." She only wanted to persuade Li Yangzi, and didn't notice what she said while talking nonsense. When she came back to her senses, she found that she had already grabbed Li Yangzi's brocade robe in her hand, and pulled it open a little. In order to after surviving, her explosive power was amazing. At some point, she pulled away Li Yangzi's belt. Lily looked at Li Yangzi and giggled. In the end, Lily was very light, because Qin Lily's dilapidated body could not exert any strength at all. She was pressed under her in a daze, and she could only clearly feel the presence of Li Yangzi. In the end, the delicate and weak body, it was she who begged for mercy. When Ms. Chen came over to visit her daughter the next day, she saw that Lily's originally pale cheeks had turned a little red as if they were dead trees blooming overnight. She was so excited that she couldn't help but clasping her hands together and sighing. Buddha the spirit appeared, and he decided to take his daughter to Hyogyo temple to offer incense from time to time in order to protect his daughter's life. When Lily heard Chen say these words, her face became even hotter. She had no idea when Li Yangzi left yesterday. When she woke up, she was awakened by Chen. Her clothes were intact. If not for her body, she seemed to have fallen apart. Generally, she felt that what happened last night was not her dream. Lily might have thought that the encounter with Li Yangzi when she entered the mission yesterday was just a figment of her sleepy imagination. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, 1 ERWR. Chapter 384. Lily, this Hyogyo temple is destined for you. The medicine prescribed by the master is also very effective. Mom sees that your complexion is much better. If you are free in the future, I will let you stay for 2 more days. Ms. Chen clasped her hands together. After saying Bodhisattva's blessing, Lily's ears began to burn. Chinyazi huddled in the corner of the large carriage, with a look of shock on his face. She, the eldest sister, was destined not to live to be 18 years old. She died in these 2 days in her last life. It was just because Ms. Chen did not bring her to offer incense or see any master in her last life. She was originally thought to be dead. Could it be that the Bodhisattva appeared, so he seems to be in much better spirits now? Or is this all just a flashback? But no matter which way it is, it would be better if Lily died, but she is still half dead now. If Lily found out that he drugged her yesterday, the consequences would be unimaginable. When Chinyazi thought of that result, she felt like there was a fire burning in her heart. She originally thought that Lily would die, so she said a few words to her after taking the medicine. Who expected that Lily was not dead at this moment? Chinyazi was naturally a little scared. The 2 sisters had no affection since childhood. Although they were siblings, Chinbei was often locked in a room because of her weak body. Ms. Chen was also afraid that her eldest daughter was weak, so she often did not allow Chinyazi to disturb her. For more than 10 years, over the years, the relationship between the 2 has become very estranged. Chinyazi is not only worried about exposing herself in front of Lily, but also thinks about her unresolved marriage, and her face becomes even more ugly. Worrying, the carriage returned to the uncle's house all the way. As the wife of the crown prince, Ms. Chen still had her mother-in-law above her head. But there are many things to take care of in the government. She was originally going to take Lily back to her room in person. Chinyazi stopped her. Mom, I think the eldest sister has gotten much better. Mom has something to do. How about my daughter take the eldest sister back to her room for her? When Chinyazi said this, Chinyeu, who had just got off the carriage, couldn't help but sneered. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, and then he turned his head away. Seeing Chinyeu like this, Chinyazi felt a little angry. Chinyeu also had a share of the credit for scheming Chinbei this time. But now it was herself who was worried. Chinyeu was too cunning. He had really underestimated her before. Ms. Chen was obviously happy to see her 2 daughters getting close, so after Chinyazi said this, she nodded, find a soft sedan to take your eldest sister back. She is weak, so take more care of her. Lily was being rocked by the carriage all the way back to the mansion. She was feeling dizzy when she heard Chinyazi seeming to be giving instructions to someone else. The sedan suddenly became quiet, as if someone had sat next to her. He reached out and touched her face gently, causing Lily to shiver. When she opened her eyes, she saw Chinyazi's gentle face with a smile on her lips. Sister, I'm awake. What are you here for? Lily lowered her face and looked very angry, but Chinyazi breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but smile sweetly. Sister, I'm here to take you back. By the way, I have a few words to say to you. When Chinyazi said this, a sinister look appeared on her cheeks, and her lips almost formed a straight line. Where did you go after eldest sister drank the tea Chinyeu handed you yesterday? What does it have to do with you? Lily felt guilty and a little angry when she thought about what happened yesterday. As soon as she became angry, she felt an unbearable dull pain in her chest. She breathed several times with difficulty. Chinyazi sat aside and said coldly. Look at her and smile. I was also wrong yesterday. I didn't stop my eldest sister from falling into Chinyeu's scheme. But I'm afraid I don't want me to know where my eldest sister went after drinking tea. From now on, you and I will go back to our own way, and what happened yesterday will be treated as such. It didn't happen. Yesterday, Chinyazi and Chinyao teamed up to trick her. Now, Chinyazi actually ran into the sedan and threatened her. An unknown fire rushed in Lily's heart, and she was so angry that stars appeared in front of her eyes. This body was really, it was too bad. If she argued with Chinyazi now, she would be at a disadvantage. Lily looked at Chinyazi's cold and condescending face, and suddenly screamed, trying hard to roll her body out of the soft sedan. He fell down and shouted in a hoarse voice, "Sister, don't hit me." When she said this, she reached out and slapped her face. Chinyazi was sitting upright and staring at Lily condescendingly, but she didn't expect that Lily would cause such an incident in the end. She couldn't help but stayed for a moment. Before she could speak, Lily looked at her with a sneer, and suddenly she opened her head, covered her face and cried softly. Chinyazi was about to reach out to pull her, but the sedan door was suddenly pulled open. The grandmother next to Chinbei stared at Chinyazi with an embarrassed look on her face. "Look, he looks a little dissatisfied. Second girl, the eldest girl is weak. Even if the second girl is unhappy, please don't embarrass her because of her poor health." "I didn't." Chinyazi opened her mouth. She used to be unruly and willful, but her personality has changed too much in the past 2 days. It had some effect. Even Mrs. Chen praised her for how many people she had recently. She was the granddaughter of Fenbo Mansion, but now Lily was crying and screaming, and everyone thought it was her who had hit Chinbei without even thinking about it. The eyes staring at her were filled with misery in her heart, which Chinyazi hated the most. She was wronged. She had been wronged too many times in her previous life. She didn't expect that even Lily would plot against her. She stared at Lily with a cold face and hated her. She hadn't spoken yet. She looked like this. Everyone was startled, and the nanny quickly asked people to get off the sedan. While getting on the sedan, she hugged Lily into her arms and protected her tightly, and then said to Chinyazi, "Second young lady, why are you so angry at this slave? The eldest girl is weak, not to mention she is always the second young lady's sister. Whether you believe it or not, I didn't hit her." Chinyazi felt a fire in her heart. She got off the sedan and glared at Lily bitterly. "Chin Lily, I thought you were a good person, but I didn't expect you to be so insidious. We'll see later." She stomped away bitterly, and Lily lay dizzy in the arms of this nanny. Although her eyes were a little hazy and she couldn't see Chinyazi's leaving figure, but when she heard her words when she left, she couldn't help but feel sad in her heart. He snorted coldly. She is only allowed to plot against others, and is not allowed to fight back. After scheming, people dare to come and threaten her. Now she has suffered a little loss and still thinks that others are sinister. It is a pity that her body is too weak this time, otherwise she was not the one she wanted to hit just now. It was Chinyazi himself. Lily was sent back, and the servants quickly called for a doctor. Mrs. Chen rushed over with a gloomy face and saw the slap mark on her daughter's face. When Lily woke up in the evening, she heard that Chinyazi had been beaten by Mrs. Chen. A slap in the face, and now he is still kneeling in the Chin family's ancestral hall. During the day, I drank the medicine prescribed by the so-called eminent monks in Chen's mouth, but it had no effect at all. At night, when the candle light flickered, the girl who was keeping watch outside had already fallen asleep, and a figure gently opened the window and jumped. Coming in without attracting anyone's attention, Lily only smelled a cold fragrance that was not of flowers and grass. When she reluctantly opened her eyes to look, she saw Li Yangzi standing at the head of the bed, bending down and hugging her in arms. If Li Yangzi didn't come again, she might not be able to survive. Lily's heart was burning with discomfort. She trembled and stretched out her hand to pull his belt. Li Yangzi's eyes twitched, but he obediently turned over on the bed and pulled her into his arms. Inside, some cold lips still had the dew that came from the night, soft and seemed to be covered with a layer of mist, very moist. Lily squinted her eyes and let him kiss her twice. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she always felt as their lips and teeth intertwined intimately, her mind became clearer. Although her body was still uncomfortable, it was much more comfortable than the feeling of dying at any moment just now. She lay on Li Yangzi's chest, her long hair spread all over him, the two of them were disheveled, and the dim light in the room illuminated two silhouettes of each other closely leaning on each other. Do you think we are like what the script says, a vixen meeting a scholar at night? Lily suddenly thought of many Liazai plots, in which vixens usually transform into beauties like Li Yangzi and sneak into the scholar's room in the middle of the night, and then pick up the yang and replenish the yin. The situation between myself and Li Yangzi was very similar to the plot in the storybook, except that Li Yangzi was like the vixen who came at night, and she was the one who took advantage of him. Thinking of this, Lily couldn't help but feel a little sad. It would be fine if she had to sacrifice her life for the mission one day, but now she has been reduced to the point where she can't live without a man. Fortunately, Li Yangzi should be even worse than herself. The one in the starry sky can control her life and death. The person who always seemed to be omnipotent in her heart, never expected that one day he would be trapped in a task and be taken advantage of by herself. Li Yangzi saw a look of sadness on her face first, and then looked at herself with sympathy. She couldn't help but laugh in her heart, but her face showed embarrassment and a bit of loss. He was originally holding her face. His hands also relaxed and hung at his sides. Lily, who just thought that this mission was a trap, saw Li Yangzi like this, and thought that she had touched his sore spot, and couldn't help but feel guilty. No matter what, Li Yangzi's current situation was related to her, not to mention this moment. She was the one who benefited, and she was the one who took advantage. Lily stretched out her hand to hold Li Yangzi's face in a flattering manner, and pressed her lips against it. From before, Li Yangzi took the initiative and became her. As the night passed, the discomfort in her body was suppressed, but she could not hide the tiredness all over her body. Lily didn't know when Li Yangzi left. When Mrs. Chen came to see her in the morning, she was still sleeping soundly holding the quilt, with two red clouds even appearing on her cheeks. When Mrs. Chen came in, Lily opened her eyes when she heard the noise and shouted a sound, "Mother." To be continued. P.S. First update. It's late today, mainly because I went to the hospital for a blood test in the morning. I was delayed for a long time in line and came back late. The second and third updates were absolutely on time. Dear friends who have not joined the group have joined today, take the time to write today when joining the group. Please tell us your mother's name, and leave a stamp in the book review area to verify your fan value. Ano. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 385. Did you sleep well last night? Seeing her daughter's sleepy look, Mrs. Chen felt an indescribable affection in her heart. She had never thought of waking up Lily, but she didn't expect her to wake up. Lily woke up as soon as she entered the door. Ms. Chen felt a little guilty and saw the window that was not closed tightly. She quickly stepped forward and closed the window for Lily. She then sat by the bed and put her daughter into her arms, wrapping her with a quilt. After being strict, he said warmly, "Chinyazi is spoiled rotten. Mother made her kneel down in the ancestral hall yesterday. Let's see if she dares to hit you again in the future." Speaking of this little daughter, Madame Chen had an angry look on her face. She originally thought that her personality had changed a bit recently, but she didn't expect that she had returned to her old ways. She usually bullied concubines, but now she dared to beat her own sister. Yesterday she kept shouting, seeing that she had been wronged. Mrs. Chen was so angry that she slapped her in the face, made her kneel in the ancestral hall, and punished her to copy 10 volumes of scriptures for Lily and put them in the Buddhist hall of the mansion. Only then did she feel the anger in her heart disappear. A few points. Hearing Chinyazi's name, Lily's expression slowly turned cold, and the original color on her cheeks faded away, making her face pitifully pale. Although Chen knew that their sisters had a fight yesterday, she didn't knowing the reason, he didn't dare to ask at the moment, so he had to hold back the questions in his heart. When he saw the green shadow appearing under Lily's eyes, he couldn't help but sigh. Mom, I just hope that this year will pass early so that you can get over the hurdle of 18 and live a peaceful life. Qin Bei is actually quite old. She was destined to be a person who would not live long in the past. The people in the uncle's house are quiet. It's just a matter of paying to support a disabled person. It doesn't matter whether she gets well or not. The most she can pay for is a coffin if she dies. I didn't think about what would happen after she turned 18. So when Qin Yazi took action against her, he looked just and right. Thinking that Lily would always die and just make some contributions to her sister before she died, she didn't take Qin Lily's thoughts to heart at all, but she didn't expect that Chen would worry about herself. Later, Lily felt soft and shook Chen's hand. His hand smiled. Mom, don't worry, I will definitely survive my 18th year in peace. Mrs. Chen had no idea about this at all. But there was a nod on his face, and he sat for a while, not daring to delay Lily's rest, so he got up and went out. Lily took a nap, and when she woke up at noon, she heard that Qin Yazi originally wanted to come over to see her, but was blocked by Chen's people in the end. She didn't take it to heart, and Li Yangzi would come over every night. Slowly, although her body was still so weak that it would collapse if the wind blew, half a month passed. Her complexion was actually better than before, and Lily tried to practice internal strength. But I don't know if this body is too bad and it is destined to die. No matter whether it is internal strength or star training, it can't be practiced. Lily tried several times and almost didn't lose her life. Asked after passing Li Yangzi, I realized that Qin Bei's body was supposed to die. Now the life is continued by Li Yangzi. It's good to be alive. It's naturally impossible to think about martial arts this time. If you want to complete the task for the original owner, without martial arts the only assistance is to rely on the brain. She was locked in the yard to recuperate. Qin Yazi wanted to see her several times, but she could not get into the yard. Each time she returned without success. Lily guessed that she did not want to see her, but that she wanted to see her. To avenge the person who was framed by him in the first place, such a vengeful person must take revenge. He only knows that he is scheming against others, but he is not willing to suffer at all. Even if he is reborn and time-traveled, he can only have such a big heart. If he meets a fool, that's all. She can rely on the convenience of rebirth or time travel to win what she wants, but if she encounters a powerful character, she will not end up with anything. Mother Chen, the young lady sent someone to invite the eldest girl to come out and sit down. Lily had just woken up in the morning. She had just washed her face and hair and hadn't combed or changed her clothes. The Chen family sent someone over, and Lily she has been looking much better recently, but Ms. Chen has always cherished her and was deeply afraid that she would fall ill if she stepped out in the wind, so she asked the people around Lily to take good care of her. Today, it was strange that she would even take the initiative to let others know. Lily was a little surprised when she asked her to go out, but when she saw the person coming, she pursed her lips and said reluctantly. Prince Du of the Nanping Marquis is here, the husband of the Duan family is also there, and several girls have gone. The husband of the Duan family asked about the eldest daughter, so the lady had to ask the girl to go out and sit down. The husband of the Duan family that this girl was talking about was the fiancé she didn't want in Qin Yazi's plot. He was also Duan Zheng, who was also plotted by Qin Yazi, and his reputation was ruined in the end, just because Qin Bei died in the plot. Morning, I don't know what the fate of this unlucky guy will be in the end, and I don't know if Qin Yazi finally married Du Linyu as she wished. But if everyone is here at this moment, maybe she still has a chance to take revenge. Lily, thinking of this, I couldn't help but laugh. She has suffered such a big loss, and there is no reason why she should be hated by others now. Qinyazi is the standard type who would rather let her suffer the world than let others suffer her. She must think of a way, and then she and Duan Zheng got together. Didn't she want to marry Duan Zheng, but it wasn't as good as she wanted. Lily smiled and asked someone to quickly find some clothes for her to change, and combed her hair, and then she was carried by the sedan in the direction of a group of guests. At this moment, a group of boys and girls are sitting in a pavilion outside the garden of the uncle's house. It is clear from a distance. The scenery is beautiful and there is no obstruction. It is said that in the early years, it was the residence of a prince of the previous dynasty. After the renovation, this garden has a large lotus pond. It is lush and green at first glance. It is the season of June and July when the lotus flowers are in full bloom. Today, the old lady of the uncle's house is in the young age. I loved lotuses when I was young, and my girlfriend's name even contained the word lotus. Therefore, the lotus pond in the uncle's house was very famous. The pavilion was in it. It could accommodate about 30 people. It was very spacious and had comfortable wooden railings built around it. In addition to the waiting girls, several concubine daughters of the Qin family were also present in the chair. Qin Yazi and Qin Ye were naturally sitting in it. Duan Zheng, who has only appeared once in the plot, is also there, and there are also 3 strange-looking teenagers. One of them is a handsome young man wearing silver-embroidered green bamboo leaf patterns who stands out the most. He has some magnanimity for his young age, Qin Yazi. Her eyes fell on him from time to time, but he glared at Qin Ye from time to time. Qin Ye occasionally flashed a cold look in her eyes, pursed her lips and refused to pay attention to him. This look attracted the young man to pay more attention to him. On Qin Ye's body, Lily's sedan stopped outside the pavilion. When she got off the sedan, she saw such a scene. She knew something in her mind, and then she stepped into the pavilion. Qin Yazi and others had already felt it when she came, but they didn't. No one made a sound until she entered the pavilion. Qin Yazi pretended not to see her. She sat and joked with the handsome young man, "This lotus pond in our house is famous. We are enjoying the scenery now. It's November in February, it is delicious to dig it out and stew it in soup. If Prince Du doesn't dislike it, I can ask my mother to send some to the Marquis mansion, just in time for Mrs. Du to have a taste." Although Qin Yazi's face was as bright as a smile, there was no trace of smile in her eyes. Instead, she looked a little indifferent. Duan Zheng stood up and glanced at Lily, with a bit of surprise in his eyes. He smiled hee-hee voice, and glanced at Qin Yazi. "Cousin, the eldest cousin is here." Among this group of people, Qin Yazi did not have the highest status, but because she was the master, she did not get up to greet Lily. Others were too embarrassed to open her mouth. At this moment, Duan Zheng opened his mouth, and Qin Yazi seemed to realize that as if he had noticed Lily's arrival, his face stiffened, and then he stood up and said, "Sister is here. It took me so long to call her. I thought she wouldn't come." When she spoke, everyone stood up. Lily saw the sarcasm flashing in Qin Ye's eyes. After hearing this, he curled his lips and turned his head away when his eyes fell on a taciturn young man with a somewhat dark complexion. This young man was not very handsome, but he had a strong aura about him. Qin Ye was obviously bothered by her. Du Linyu, who originally wanted to marry, was not very interested, but instead focused on this black-faced boy. This trip was really worth it. Lily sneered in her heart, sat down unceremoniously, tilted her head and asked, "Have you ever asked someone to call me? That's really embarrassing. Maybe I wasn't in good health and didn't hear." Lily's voice was soft when she spoke, but it also had an indescribable charm, as if a little finger hooked people's hearts after she said a sentence. Even if she looked lazy, Qin Yazi only felt that she had never understood this short-lived ghost sister who in her opinion would die sooner or later. She only felt that Lily was like when she entered the palace in her previous life. She saw the emperor's beloved concubine son, who was named the crown prince after giving birth to a son. However, Sun didn't seem to have the same momentum as her. It made people feel that even sitting with Lily, it seemed that something seems a little wrong. Qin Yeu, who cast her gaze on the dark-faced boy, glanced at Lily with a frown, her eyes showing a hint of vigilance, and then she lowered her eyelids. The atmosphere was a little awkward, but Qin Yazi quickly came to her senses. Although she hated Lily for framing her that day, and now regarded Lily as her enemy, she showed a sweet smile on the surface, and looked at the pavilion one by one. Several people pointed it out to Lily. Sister stays in the hospital all year round to recuperate. I'm afraid you don't know these people. This is the eldest son of Nanping Marquis, and this is General Yan, the son of the mighty general. Knowing the identity of the person Qin Yeo looked at with disdain, Lily just remembered the names of the remaining two young men. One of them was Chen's nephew, and the other, a somewhat feminine-looking young man, was the eldest son of the Changping Marquis. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 386. Duan was the last person introduced by Qin Yazi. Everyone could see that Qin Yazi did not like to see Duan Zheng. On the contrary, as soon as Lily came, she pulled Lily and sat next to Duan Zheng. It was obvious what she had in mind. She was recently thinking about breaking off her engagement with Duan Zheng and marrying Du Linyu from Nanping Marquis, but there was no legitimate reason. In addition, the incident of beating Lily cast a shadow on Chen's heart, so naturally she thought that she was just fooling around, so even though Mrs. Chen was coveting the marriage in Nanping Marquis, she still didn't agree to Qin Yazi as easily as in the plot. The emperor is getting older recently. His Royal Highness is in power. The prince is not young anymore. I heard that the emperor is choosing a concubine for him recently. Everyone was obviously talking about current political topics before. When Lily came, everyone met separately. Du Linyu mentioned this matter again. Qin Lily in the plot didn't know this, and Lily didn't want to know. She didn't want to care about things that had nothing to do with her mission, but she saw that Qin Yazi seemed to be fascinated by what she heard. He couldn't help but laugh when he saw that even Qin Ye was clearly listening with her ears tilted. The other two concubines in the uncle's house were usually treated like quails by Mrs. Chen. Today they came here to serve as foils. Even though their eyes fell on Du Linyu unwillingly, they did not dare to make any other moves. In comparison, Qin Ye, this concubine's performance is particularly outstanding. Not only does her temperament appear refined, but the cold look on her face is also very eye-catching. Compared with the other two concubines who can't hide their shabby aura, she seems to have a kind of innate nobility. The prince chooses a concubine asked, with a bit of eagerness in her eyes. Qin Ye couldn't help but sneered, "Fourth sister. Don't think that the prince's choice of concubine is a good thing. Then after entering the palace it's as deep as the sea. I don't know how many people in the palace want to get out, but there are still some who want to get in. What's the point of a group of women trying to grab a man together?" When Qin Ye said this with a somewhat contemptuous expression, several teenagers couldn't help turning their heads to look at her. Even General Yan, whom she had always admired, turned to look at her with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Despite the unexpected look of appreciation, Qin Ye seemed very steady. She didn't feel guilty and inferior because of everyone's neglect before. Now she naturally didn't look complacent because of everyone's gaze and admiration. This self-control made everyone couldn't help but look at her differently. Du Linyu's eyes were even more, she smiled and was about to speak, but Lily shook her body and couldn't help laughing. "Cousin, what are you laughing at?" Duan Zheng was originally moved by Qin Ye's impressive remarks, but Lily suddenly burst out laughing, interrupting the serious atmosphere created by Qin Ye just now. He was looking at Lily smiling and also giggled along with him. He sat close to Lily, and almost stretched out his hand on Lily's arm. It is indeed understandable that such a frivolous person Qin Yazi dislikes him, but she should not plan to let Qin Beihe get rid of this scourge for her. If Qin Yazi is really reborn, even if she wants to be with Duan, there were 1,000 valid reasons for terminating the contract. She could have had other ways to resolve the marriage, but because she was anxious and wanted to resolve the matter quickly, she decided to blame Qin Beihe. Lily lowered her eyelids to cover up the fierce look that flashed in her eyes. After hearing Duan Zheng's words, she just stretched out her hand to pour herself a cup of warm tea and put the cup to her mouth to block the smile at the corner of her mouth. Then he said gently, "I'm laughing at what the second sister said is so funny. I don't know what I said is so funny. It makes my sister so happy. When Qin Yeo said that once entering the palace gate, it is as deep as the sea." Lily almost dared to conclude that she should be a time-traveling girl rather than a reborn girl. She has done many ancient missions and knows that most daughters in ancient times are proud to enter the palace. Unless some women who have already been engaged are not suitable to be selected to enter the palace, there are no matchmakers for unmarried women, and they all yearn for that. Tao represents the palace of glory and wealth, and she can say that she doesn't want to compete with women all over the world for her husband. Apart from modern women who have traveled to ancient times, Lily really can't think of any ancient girl who has such insight. Knowing Qin Yeo's identity accidentally, Lily felt a big stone in her heart. If Qin Yazi was also reborn and one of them was a time-traveling woman, then this mission would be very exciting. Before Qin Yeo traveled through time, she should have been a very strong woman with high self-esteem, because after she said this, once Lily showed any objection, she became a little unhappy and started asking questions in front of everyone, without thinking. "I thought that I was just a concubine, so what qualifications did I have to question my eldest sister?" But now everyone seemed to be impressed by her previous remarks. No one felt that Qin Yeo's attitude at this time was wrong. Instead, they all looked as if it was natural. The little General Yan even frowned and stared at Lily, with a look of disapproval on his face. "Isn't it funny? Let's not talk about the prince's affairs. There is no room for women like us to talk. What's more, in ancient times, it was common for men to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Not to mention that the prince, as a prince, is less than 10,000 people. It is just ordinary. If a man has money and status in his family, who doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Even if he doesn't compete with the world for his husband, doesn't it mean that the second sister won't have to compete with others for her husband in the future?" Lily deliberately emphasized that in ancient times, men had 3 wives. The words "fourth concubine" were used, and then he stared at Qin Yeo's expression to test whether his guess was correct. Seeing the almost unbearable look of disdain on Qin Yeo's face, Lily smiled. The Prince Qin in the uncle's house had 3 wives and 4 concubines. Qin Yeo's own body was just that of a concubine, born from a concubine. But she said that she didn't want to compete with others for her husband, and Lily's eyes showed a sarcastic look. If the second sister said such words, it would be fine if my aunt didn't hear her. If she did, I don't know how sad she would be. Even though Qin Yeo came here halfway, since she accepted this body, she should naturally accept everything about this body, whether it is status or trouble. Her aunt is a concubine, and she still tried her best to steal other people's husbands. She had just become pregnant, but she said with dignity that she would not steal someone's husband. Lily laughed for a while, and there was a deathly silence in the pavilion. No one spoke, and the few teenagers who just thought Qin Yeo was right all turned pale and white and were speechless. General Yan also raised his hand into a fist and brought it to his mouth. He coughed twice and said nothing. However, there was no longer any longing for Qin Yeo in his eyes. Instead, he was a little embarrassed. Qin Yeo looked at Lily with a hint of embarrassment. It was cold and a bit sarcastic, as if she was mocking Lily, an ancient person who refused to change her ways. After a while, she poured a cup of tea with a smile and drank it by herself. Everyone has his or her own ambitions. My eldest sister thinks that it is common for men to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. That's what my eldest sister thinks. But I am different. I don't want to be rich or famous in the future. I just hope to find a sincere person and stay together forever. I am satisfied in this life. Du Ligneu's eyes showed admiration, he touched his palms and nodded, good ambition. I only know about important matters such as marriage, parents' orders, and matchmakers' advice. It's okay to talk about my second sister's words today, but don't let anyone listen to them. Otherwise, people will think that our uncle's house has no tutor. Lily looked at Du Ligneu and others. Appreciation appeared in the eyes again, and the evil-hearted man blocked her again. Qin Yeo was furious when she heard this. Lily was obviously implying that she was frivolous. A sick and consumptive ghost might not be able to survive at any time. The sick young man actually targeted her over and over again. No one in this uncle's house was good. The younger one wanted to plot against her, but failed. The older one didn't seem to be a good person at the moment. Fortunately, he had tricked her that day, and he had been careful to let her have a handle on him. Now it seems that what he did at that time was really right. At this time, Qin Yeo saw that the Qin family was just a nest of snakes and rats with nothing good to offer, and she wished she could take her aunt out of the house immediately to live alone. She sneered twice, just when she didn't want to continue to get along with these ignorant and stupid women. After all, summer insects cannot talk about ice, but Qin Yazi suddenly said. Perhaps the second sister was brought up by my aunt and doesn't have much knowledge. The eldest sister shouldn't stand up to her anymore. Why are we talking about such serious topics? It's such a nice weather today, why not enjoy flowers and write poems? Just now, Lily had stimulated Qin Yeo quite a lot. Qin Yazi now came out to be a good person. She stabbed Lily and Qin Yeo once. After saying that, without giving Qin Yeo a chance to speak, she immediately started to propose poems to appreciate the flowers. Du Ligneu glanced helplessly at Qin Yeo's ugly face, and said nothing. Instead, Duan Zheng said happily, "Why don't you beat the drum and pass the flowers? If you lose, the sisters can't write poems, why not sing and dance?" A group of ladies here, not girls in the cellar, actually made such a suggestion. A cold look flashed in Qin Yazi's eyes, but there was a smile on the corner of her mouth. She suddenly turned to look at Lily and nodded. He nodded, okay. She herself was reborn, and even though she didn't have much literary talent, she could at least be good at painting. What's more, she still remembered a few poems written by a very famous talented girl in Beijing in her previous life. Like Lily being locked up in a boudoir, Mrs. Chen only knew how to raise her up, but did not send anyone to find a wife for her. She was a loser and had no literary talent. Today Lily was so ugly. That day Lily actually dared to frame her. Now that she is being embarrassed in public, she can show off her talent. As for Qin Yeo, she had good luck in her previous life, but her background was poor. An aunt could not find a wife for Qin Yeo. She also had more life experience, so she would definitely win this time. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 387. Thinking of this, Qin Yazi quickly asked someone to bring the flower drum. When Lily heard the drumming and passing the flowers, her palms suddenly started to pinch. Her IQ was indeed much higher than before, but she was really not good at writing poetry, and she was not good at painting. I have learned it before, but this body is soft and has no strength at all. You may be tired after holding the pen for a while, let alone spending half an hour to paint, but Lily is worried about it at the moment. He didn't show it at all on the surface. Instead, he smiled and sat on the wooden chair without making a sound. Soon a girl came with a flower drum and other things. After everyone agreed to use the sound of the drum as a signal, the flowers woven with ribbons were thrown away. Except for Du Linyu, a few young people who were interested in this type of program because he was a Jinchi, the cousin of the Chen family, had a low status. Since Du Linyu and others had agreed, he naturally did not dare to refute, and Duan Zheng was a drunkard. The intention was not to drink. Although it was called playing drums and passing flowers with the girls, his eyes actually fell on a few girls, his eyes rolling. As for General Yan, there was a sneer on the corner of his mouth, a little impatient, but because of the etiquette, he was forced to endure, but the remaining prince just stopped talking and sat on the same spot without moving. The two concubines of the Qin family were a little excited. Normally, Mrs. Chen kept a close eye on them. They had little chance to meet such a big shot as Du Linyu. Now they were able to see and play with him. They were all very excited. Someone had just been there. When it comes to princes marrying concubines, although everyone likes to talk about it and join in the fun, after all, it is not realistic to be too far away from everyone. It is better to seize the group of young people in front of you. If you can marry into the two princes' mansions, they will become side rooms. The concubine naturally felt that it was worth it. Everyone has their own evil intentions. The drums sounded dong dong dong. The drummer was Qin Yazi's girl. After she beat the drum for a while, Qin Yazi winked at her. When the flower ball fell into Qin Yu's hand, the drum sound stopped. Qin Yu had not yet been able to throw the flower in her hand. It was naturally her turn to show off. Why don't you ask the second sister to compose a poem in the name of this pond full of lotus flowers? What do you think? Qin Yazi glanced at Qin Yu. There was a smile on the corner of her mouth. Although she hated Lily, after all, the grudge between Lily and her was not that deep compared to Qin Yu. She hated Qin Yu first, and then Lily, not to mention Lily's body has always been in poor condition. Although Qin Yazi didn't know how Lily could live a few more months than she knew in her previous life, in Qin Yazi's heart Lily was a person who could die at any time after all, so it would be better to hit her. First hit Qin Yu more. It would be best to kill this enemy first and then take care of Lily. Miss Jin-san, this is a good suggestion. Du Linyu clapped his hands. He opened his mouth, and the few teenagers were naturally non-committal. Qin Yazi's eyes showed a bit of sarcasm. Seeing that everyone was waiting to see his joke, Qin Yu suddenly smiled and stood up. I walked towards the lotus pond. The lotus flowers were growing very well in the lotus pond. Some lotus leaves had already jumped up to the edge of the pavilion. You could easily get them by squatting down and stretching your hands through the cracks in the wooden railings. The expression was cold. The girl could not help but attract everyone's attention at this moment. There was a bit of indifference in her eyes. The gentle breeze blew up her skirt, giving her a bit of an otherworldly feeling. She spoke softly. The spring water is silent and cherishes the trickle. The trees and clouds shine on the water and love the clear and soft water. The little lotus has just revealed its sharp corners, and the dragonfly has already stood on it. Qin Yazi had never thought that she could compose poetry. After all, Qin Yu was raised by her aunt since she was a child. She was neither reading nor literate, and she could not even memorize all the female precepts and duties. How could she write poetry? She had just asked Qin Yu to write a poem named Lotus, but she just wanted to make her look embarrassed. However, she didn't expect Qin Yu to actually write a poem in such a short period of time. Although Qin Yazi didn't know much about poetry, she could. It sounds like the workmanship is neat, especially in such a short time, which gives her a few more points. This time she made a bad move. It was impossible to steal the chicken, but she also lost a lot of rice. Qin Yazi's face suddenly changed. Okay, Du Linyu clapped his hands, with a look of shock on his face. Even General Yan Xiao, who had a cold and disapproving expression, glanced at Qin Yeo in surprise, and his eyes regained a bit of amazement. Du Linyu said excitedly, "Spring water facing the trees and clouds, silently contrasting the water, one word cherish and the other word love, it is so clever to use it, the little lotus has just revealed its sharp corners, and a dragonfly has already stood on it, it is really wonderful, indescribable, I didn't expect Qin Er the girl actually has such amazing talents." When Lily heard this, she was already 100% sure that Qin Yeo must be a time-traveling woman. She raised her head speechlessly. She didn't expect that Qin Yeo would dare to plagiarize other people's poems and pretend to be her own. The key is that plagiarism is plagiarism, but she did it wrong. I couldn't remember the ancient poem but memorized it by heart. Except for the last two sentences, which were correct, there was one wrong word in each of the first two paragraphs. The spring water flows silently and slowly. I think the spring is slightly better than the spring water. What do you think? The second sister, Lily stood up and walked towards Qin Yeo. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw the expression in Qin Yeo's eyes. There was a hint of sarcasm, as if she was mocking her, an ancient person who didn't understand anything but loved to speak randomly. Lily looked at Qin Yeo and found it very interesting. She looked down on the ancients, but she wanted to plagiarize them. She thought of Qin Yeo. The cup of tea with aphrodisiacs added to her was tricked in the first place, but now there was a cold look in her eyes. Qin Yeo clearly had several ways to avoid drinking the bowl of tea, but she chose to use the method of framing people. Lily walked towards her as she spoke, and saw the gloomy-looking marquis standing next to Qin Yeo. When the crown prince was born, Lily's eyes showed a bit of smile. "If you don't understand, please don't speak casually." Qin Yeo didn't want to explain to pedantic and ignorant ancients like Lily. This poem is a famous masterpiece handed down from generation to generation. Every word in it was written by a great poet and has been sung 1,000 years. How could an ancient woman like Qin Beihe, who only had straw bags in her belly, be able to change it at will? She twitched the corner of her mouth impatiently, and when she was about to turn around to look at the lotus pond, Lily suddenly seemed to soften, and her whole body when the person was a little unsteady and stepped on the hem of her skirt and was about to fall to the ground, the girl next to Lily rushed over. "I want to reach out and catch her." People crowded over. In the chaos, no one knew who hit Qin Yeo from behind with her vest. Before she could recover, she fell straight into the lotus pond with her face turned pale. "Ah!" The girls screamed, and the pavilion suddenly became more chaotic. Du Linyu subconsciously wanted to jump into the lotus pond, but before he could make a move, another man wearing a navy blue robe appeared in the crowd. The figure also fell down with its head on the ground. "Ah! The prince has also fallen into the water," everyone screamed in surprise. Although the location of the pavilion is not the deepest part of the lotus pond, people can't step on it if they fall in. They can only hear the sound of water bubbles. There was a sound, and Qin Yeo, who had just looked pure and cold, fluttered twice, fell into the water, and could not float again. Everyone was stunned. Du Linyu's face looked a little ugly. Qin Yazi was not in a hurry to save people at the moment. She hoped that Qin Yeo would stay under the water for a while longer. It would be best to drown in the water. She pretended to be panicked and came closer. He covered his mouth and said, "Oh, why does the second sister always like to fall into the water with others? One moment she is the prince, and the other moment she is the prince." Lily bumped into two people in succession, and now her whole body was so weak that she couldn't muster any strength. She cursed her dilapidated body again in her heart, and grinned. Qin Yeo didn't look down on the self-righteous calculations of the ancients. Someone else, since she loves falling in love with someone, he will help her, like someone like General Yan Xiao. Don't even think about it, just go and stay in the lake by yourself. Du Linyu's face was ashen. The lotus pond that was originally clear to the bottom was quickly turned into a pool of turbidity by two people who fell into the water. People from the Qin mansion heard the movement and quickly rushed over. A group of strong women jumped down. Hitang pulled the person up. Fortunately, it was summer and it wasn't necessarily too cold. If Qin Yeo fell in like this in winter, she would lose half her life. Someone pushed me. As soon as she was rescued, she was forced to vomit out the water she drank in her abdomen. When she woke up, she looked around bitterly, trying to find out who was plotting against her. The young Prince Wang was now wrapped in a thin blanket, with water dripping all over his body. He snorted coldly when he heard this. Lily fell limply in her mother's arms, and vaguely heard Qin Yeo's words. The voice could not help but curl the corner of the mouth. The scene was a mess. Mrs. Chen, who came later, and the current uncle and wife of the Qin family were all pale when they saw this scene. Mrs. Chen hurriedly asked people to carry Lily back to the room, and then resentfully asked people to carry Lily back to the room. Qin Yeo also sent it back. Lily blew the wind and exerted her strength, and her body developed a high fever that night. She felt like someone was holding her arms and slept all night, and a familiar cold fragrance lingered around her nose. It stayed there until almost dawn and disappeared. Qin Yeo, this little bitch, I didn't expect her to be so capable. If anything happens to my daughter, I want her to pay with her life. Mrs. Chen's low voice was filled with anger, and Lily opened her eyes. With her shockingly burnt eyelids, she saw Mrs. Chen sitting in front of the bed, staring at her lovingly. When she saw Lily waking up, Mrs. Chen suddenly stood up in surprise. Ba, my son, are you okay? Finally woke up. To be continued. P.S. At least 3 updates today. First update, waste 2 minutes to disturb everyone. Yesterday, I added a free 5,000-word novel to the group file. It was originally intended to be a benefit to the revised version of the girl paper Hanji. However, many of you did not provide your girl ID when you joined the group, but applied directly. I know in this way, people who watch the Dao version will be mixed in, but for the rights of the genuine fans, I still agreed to them all. But in the end, I was a little upset, because a group of girls who watched Dao joined the group and prompted the group leader. The girl who changed her ID was completely ignored, and she quickly left the group after seeing the benefits for genuine children's shoes. This kind of behavior simply made me drunk all night, so when I saw the application for children's shoes again today, many group owners who did not report their mother ID did not agree. If there are free chapters in the future, I will put them in the group again. This is for there is no charge for everyone's welfare. It is purely for entertainment. You can just read the usual chapters. This kind of extra chapter actually has no impact if you don't read it. Why bother to upset the author again? In addition, genuine children's shoes are reminded to report their ID when joining the group, so as not to be rejected by the group owner because they think it is not genuine. Delay your own interests. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 388. Someone hurriedly brought the medicine. Lily passed out last night and couldn't even drink the medicine. Mrs. Chen originally thought that Lily wouldn't wake up now. She even had the worst plan in her mind. Unexpectedly, she managed to get through it, and Mrs. Chen was surprised and happy now. After some tossing, Lily felt a little better, and then she heard what happened yesterday. Yesterday, the young prince fell into the water in the uncle's house. The people in the Haufa were naturally very unhappy. Lu Linyu fell into the water together, and now he fell into the water with the prince of another house. No one believed it was a coincidence. They all felt that Qin Yeo deliberately wanted to fall into the water with the prince after seeing the prince. Even if Du Linyu had some appreciation for Qin Yeo yesterday because of her poem about lotuses, in the end the popularity of the Nanping Marquis was gone. Even if Du Linyu still had thoughts about Qin Yeo, if Qin Yeo fell into the water alone with him, forget it, Even if Qin Yeo's status is a little different and she is a concubine, if Du Linyu really likes her, the two families will discuss whether to let Qin Yeo enter the house as a common wife, or let her be remembered as a wife. It also makes her marry as a registered legitimate daughter under the name of the Chen family. But now Qin Yeo and the young Prince Wang of the Changping marquis have also fallen into the water. This is equivalent to a slap in the face of the Du family. An unmarried concubine feels a little too big. She fell into the water at the same time. A good girl does not wait for her two husbands. She wanted to eat from the bowl but also cared about the pot. Could it be that Du Linyu and the young Prince Wang had to be picked over by her? Because of this, the Du family was very unhappy. The Wang family almost fell out with the Qin family. Prince Wang took a dip in water yesterday. Half of his life was gone. The Qin family paid for the best medicinal materials and went out. Unfortunately, the person who gave the gift had not yet returned with the news. When Lily heard all this, a smile finally appeared on her face. Qin Yeo had designed to harm her, but now she also ruined Qin Yeo's marriage. The two were temporarily evened. From then on, Qin Yeo wanted to marry Ruyi. Lang Jun is in a difficult position. At least the General Yan whom Du Linyu and Qin Yeo are interested in will definitely not be able to marry Qin Yeo into the palace again. If Qin Yeo stays contentedly in the future, neither of them will owe anyone anything in the future, and they can deal with Qin Yazi with peace of mind. A concubine still wants to choose between two heirs. She is so greedy. Mrs. Chen tucked her daughter's quilt, gently smoothed Bai's hair, and then snorted coldly. There has been no news from the Wang family, and I don't know how this matter will be resolved. Don't worry about it and have a good rest. Taking good care of your body is important. The concubine in the palace will have her birthday in a few days. If you are in better health, mother, let's take you out to change your mood. Lily nodded. In the past, Qin Lily had been trapped in the Qin mansion due to poor health. Except for the last time she went to Hyogyo Temple to offer incense, she had never gone out for more than 10 years. Now it was rare for Mrs. Chen to be willing taking her out, although Lily was not the original owner and was already past the age where she liked to go out, she still nodded when she saw Mrs. Chen's expectant look. Mrs. Chen went out very happily. Her daughter was now 17, but she had not said goodbye yet. In the past, she was so afraid that Qin Beihe would not be able to support her that she did not even dare to name her, let alone get her engaged. Recently, Beihe is getting closer and closer to the age of 18. If she survives it in the future, the master once said that she will have a smooth and prosperous life in the future. Mrs. Chen does not expect that her daughter will being rich and powerful has brought benefits to the Qin family. As long as her daughter can live in peace, that is the greatest good thing. As soon as Mrs. Chen left, Lily fell asleep again. She only felt that someone came and poured medicine for her while she was sleeping. However, she couldn't drink it. She coughed a few times and vomited it out. Occasionally, she could hear Mrs. Chen's voice crying, but finally fell into sleep again. When Lily woke up again, she woke up with Li Yangzi in his arms. The cold breath on his body had a soothing power, which gradually calmed down her originally chaotic heartbeat. When she saw Li Yangzi, she couldn't bear to he couldn't help but buried his head in his arms and whispered. I thought I wouldn't be able to wake up. She has been on missions many times, and every time she has faced death, but this time has never been real, as if she will die and not wake up. That feeling was very scary, but she knew that she might not wake up, and the fear was always there, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't open her eyes. Li Yangzi patted her back comfortingly and nodded, I know. So. Lily hesitated for a moment, glanced at him, bit her lip, reached out and began to touch his belt, with a somewhat flattering expression on her face, so, can I? Ever since she plotted against Qin Yeo, her body became so full that she developed a high fever. She could feel that Li Yangzi had been here, but he shouldn't have touched her. Otherwise, she should have recovered from the illness long ago. Although at this moment, Lily already felt very embarrassed on her face, but she still showed a serious expression and did not dare to raise her head to look at Li Yangzi's face. She pulled the quilt and covered the two of them. Li Yangzi's eyelids twitched in the darkness, but he did not refuse her initiative. Instead, he cooperated and watched her face change from pale at the beginning to gradually turning red. When she woke up the next afternoon, the situation was indeed much better. There was no sense of drowsiness like before, as if she could never wake up after falling asleep. Lily secretly breathed a sigh of relief and climbed up from the bed and sat up. When she opened her eyes, a group of maids and women came around to wait on her, but the surroundings were quiet at the moment. Lily coughed, and then a voice came from outside asking, "Miss, are you awake?" White flags had been hung around. A group of girls and women came in with expressions of surprise on their faces. When they saw Lily sitting on the bedside, everyone couldn't help crying. This time, Ms. Chen thought she was this daughter couldn't survive it, but Lily unexpectedly suffered another fatal blow. Ms. Chen hurriedly asked someone to pull the hanging white flag, while hugging Lily and refusing to let go. From then on, she became more careful with Lily, and refused to let her leave the hospital easily. Li Yangzi would come over every night, and I don't know how he used it to hide it from everyone's attention. Half a month passed in a flash. Ms. Chen had promised Lily earlier that as long as she was in better health, she would take her to the palace to attend Concubine Sun's birthday. Concubine Sun was not only the favorite concubine of the current emperor, but her only son was now crowned as the crown prince. Chen as the heir apparent of the uncle's family, Chen is also the wife who is qualified to enter the palace to congratulate Sun Gaifei on her birthday. Lily's health seems to be getting better day by day recently. Ms. Chen had someone wake up Lily early in the morning to help her. After tidying up, he helped her onto the carriage. Besides Chen, there was also Qin Yazi in the carriage on the other side. They hadn't seen each other for a while. Qin Yazi looked much more mature and steady than before. Maybe it was because of the fight between the two sisters that Chen was deeply afraid of Lily. The eldest daughter would be at a disadvantage if she got into trouble with Qin Yazi again, so they were obviously a family, but they were divided into two carriages. The serious lady of the uncle's house led Qin Yazi in one carriage, while Ms. Chen herself took another carriage. There were so many people entering the palace to pay their respects. Carriages of all sizes were already waiting in front of the Meridian Gate. The carriage of the uncle's residence also stopped outside the palace gate. After the identity was checked by the guards guarding the palace gate, then we walked into the palace. It was mid-August and the weather was still very hot. After being bored for a while, Lily felt sick. Ms. Chen took the beauty fan and kept shaking it for her. Suddenly, there was a cold outside. The eunuch's call came, and they happened to call the uncle's house. Ms. Chen breathed a sigh of relief, quickly pulled her daughter out of the carriage, and followed her mother-in-law into the palace. Among the people lined up neatly, a woman in her 30s who was walking in front suddenly turned her head, stared at the people in the uncle's house, and sneered twice. It was the Changping Marquis. Ms. Chen held Lily's hand and shook it, but no one spoke. The ladies who entered the palace sat down in rows. Concubine Sun had not come out yet. The wife of Changping Haofu happened to be sitting at the head of the uncle's house. Taking advantage of Concubine Sun's absence, she turned around. He glanced at Lily and Qin Yazi and suddenly sneered. Ms. Qin is so happy today. She brought her two granddaughters to pay her birthday to the imperial concubine. I have pity on my poor son. He is still lying in bed unable to get out of bed due to the cold. The face of the grandmother in Lily's body suddenly became a little ugly. She subconsciously turned around and glanced at Qin Yazi. Qin Yazi lowered her head and said nothing, pretending to be well behaved. Ms. Chen kept apologizing. But Ms. Changping was a little reluctant. I wonder how the Crown Prince is going to solve this matter. A few days ago, people from the Qin family came to the Wang family with gifts but refused to accept them. Today, they took the initiative to talk about apology. It can be seen that there is still room for resolution of this matter. Chen Shi and her mother-in-law looked at each other, and just when they were relieved, Lily's heart moved, and she heard her grandmother say with a smile, "Then I don't know how Mrs. Wang wants to solve this matter? This matter is indeed an evildoer who is ignorant. I hope Madam will be more noble." The fact that Qin Yao fell into the water cannot be spread. Although many people in Beijing may know it by now, it is related to the reputation of the Qin family. There are men in the Qin family who have not yet been engaged, so they cannot be affected by this. At this time, Mrs. Chen scolded Qin Yao in her heart. She got a bloody blow, and she had to bear the blame on the surface. "Humph, I'm giving you an advantage. My son hasn't said goodbye yet. If your concubine in the palace makes such a fuss, how can I ask my son to say goodbye in the future?" Hearing this, Ms. Chen lowered her head and said nothing. Then Mrs. Wang continued. "But I don't like Miss Qin, who has shallow eyes." To be continued. P.S. Second update, fourth update today. Thanks to Instant Kill Potato, dear Heshabai who gave the reward. Thanks to Wanjiao Suanji, dear Heshabai for the reward. Thanks to Pao Mo and He Shivi who gave the reward today. I will start with Bulletin. Mo, kiss and reward He Shivi who will add more updates first, and He Shivi who owes more updates will be divided into 3 updates a day this month to pay off their debts. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 389. When Lily heard this, her hand hidden in her cuff suddenly moved. When she went out today, she specially put a small embroidery needle in her cuff. It came in handy now. When she heard Mrs. Wang say after saying this, Lily took the needle and put her hand around her back. When the person was unconscious, she took the needle tip and stabbed Qin Yazi who was sitting next to her. Ouch! Qin Yazi was attacked for a moment, and she screamed subconsciously in panic. She had just pretended to be quiet and well behaved, but now she suddenly made a sound. Even if she just shouted and then stopped, it still caused a stir. Noticing Mrs. Wang's interest, he set his sights on her, "But there are still 2 legitimate daughters in your house. The eldest girl is rich and rich, so I don't dare to have any ideas. I think Miss Jean-san is good, she is well behaved and quiet. He also has a virtuous temperament." The words of praise made Qin Yazi's face change drastically, and big beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. Mrs. Chen's face was also a little darkened, and she glared at Qin Yazi hatefully. At this moment, Qin Yazi only felt the pain in the place where she had just been stung. She endured the pain and let out a deep breath. With a tone of voice, he suppressed the anger in his heart, and glanced around from the corner of his eye. When he saw the palace maid and eunuch standing behind him, he then turned his attention to Lily. His eyes suddenly became gloomy, and his expression was momentarily distorted. Lily pursed her lips and smiled slightly, then Mrs. Wang continued. "If I can get a girl like Miss Jean-san as my daughter-in-law, the Changping Marquis will be very happy." Qin Yazi gritted her teeth and her chest couldn't help but rise and fall. She was about to get angry, but she gritted her teeth and didn't dare to make a sound at this time. Mrs. Chen was also too embarrassed to speak. In his heart, Qin Yao scolded Qin Yao for causing trouble. Frankly speaking, the status of the Changping Haofu is indeed one level higher than that of the Qin family, but if Mrs. Wang's son is really that good, there is no need to force Qin Yazi to marry now. Who in the capital doesn't know that the eldest son of the Changping Marquis is? Just as Mrs. Chen was about to distance herself, Qin Yazi couldn't help gritting her teeth. "Mom, I want to go find the toilet. Can I ask my eldest sister to accompany me?" When she said this, her expression was a little gloomy. There was a bit of ruthlessness in her eyes. Mrs. Chen was in a moment of embarrassment. She thought it would be better for her daughter to stay away, but she was afraid that Lily was weak and would be too tired to go out with Qin Yazi. In addition, the last time Qin Yazi slapped Lily again, Mrs. Chen felt a little hesitant in her heart, but the voice of the eunuch singing outside sounded. The royal concubine has arrived. In the plot of the previous life, Lily had been a domineering imperial concubine for more than 10 years. Now when she heard the words imperial concubine, she instinctively wanted to laugh. When she came back to her senses, she realized that the eunuch was not calling her. She is the concubine's son in this plot. Because Qin Beihe was weak, she had heard of concubine Sunday, but I have never seen her. I only know that she is the beloved concubine of the Holy Emperor. She has been a favorite for more than 10 years, but she is quite similar to herself in the plot. At this time, concubine Sun's only son has been canonized as the prince. Last time Du Linyu and others said that the prince would choose a concubine, it was concubine Sun's only son. Concubine Sun was about to come, and Qin Yazi could only hold it in even if she wanted to go to the toilet. Lily grinned at her, with a bit of sarcasm in her eyes. This look made Qin Yazi furious and grabbed her. He grabbed Lily's hand, and his nails almost dug into the back of Lily's hand. "Sister, you are really good at it. Sister, I really misjudged you before. When she plots against others, she plots against them to the point of death. Now, she is unhappy when others repay her, and now she resents herself." Lily is holding back her breath, and she gritted her teeth when she heard Qin Yazi's words. Qin Yazi's nails pinched her painfully. She might not be Qin Yazi's opponent in the strength competition, but at this moment she had an embroidery needle in her hand, which she happened to hide with her cuff, and pretended to cover the back of Qin Yazi's hand with one hand. Gave her a sharp needle. So what if Qin Yazi knew that he was plotting against her? She owed it to herself. The lingering pain on her back had not subsided yet, so Beihe stabbed her again with great force. Qin Yazi shivered in pain and almost shed tears. Her whole body felt like an electric shock and she twitched her hand. He pulled away and glared at Lily angrily. "It is indeed you." Even if she didn't do it herself, she still recognized herself in her heart. What's more, according to Qin Yazi's character, Qin Beihe didn't do anything at the beginning and was regarded as the target of her calculations because of her poor health. Now even if she did it, so what? Lily, there was no denying it. This attitude made Qin Yazi very angry. She stood up immediately, not caring about the arrival of concubine Sun and others. When she thought about being reborn, she was always cautious, but she still almost fell into Lily's way. Just now this vicious and mean woman almost caused her to marry into the Wang family. She was so angry that she lost most of her rationality. Qin Yazi immediately pretended to slap Lily in the face. "What are you doing?" The two daughters were just quarreling at home, and now they were quarreling outside. Ms. Chen gave Qin Yazi a hard squeeze, and Qin Yazi shivered in pain before she replied. After coming to her senses, she gasped, then bit her lip and looked at Lily with a sullen face, and sneered twice. Apparently she had written this matter down in her mind, and was preparing to wait until she found an opportunity to do it again. Attack. Lily was not afraid of her either. At this moment, concubine Sun was helped out from the apse. She was wearing a palace dress embroidered with bright yellow patterns and complicated jewelry on her head. She was dressed resplendently and had just sat down. Everyone bowed down together, and concubine Sun lazily called out, and the emperor's imperial edict was passed over. Although the current emperor has a queen, because the queen has no children and has been a Buddhist for many years, she only occupies the position of a queen. Concubine Sun is the only one in the harem. Everyone said a few auspicious words. Sun Guifei prepared to lead everyone outside the palace. Today the emperor held a banquet in the palace to celebrate her birthday. All the wives came to pay homage to her first and then went to the queen. As they walked along, Mrs. Wang was smiling. Walking in front of everyone in the uncle's house, Mrs. Chen had a sad look on her face and did not notice that Qin Yazi was a few steps away from her at this moment. When entering the imperial garden, the most eye-catching thing was a large bush of pink roses that were in bloom right now. Concubine Sun stopped here, stretched out her armored finger, pointed at the flowers and said proudly, "Do you think these flowers are blooming beautifully? Your Majesty knows that I have always liked these flowers and plants, so he specially ordered people to cultivate them in large quantities." It is said that Concubine Sun had such a large rose garden at home when she was not married. After entering the palace, in order to please her, the emperor specially opened a large area of the imperial garden to plant roses, and sent special personnel to carefully prune them so that they would bloom during the period. This flower sponge stretches endlessly as if there is no end in sight. Concubine Sun has always liked taking a bath with rose petals, and her body has always been scented with roses. In addition, her maiden name was Sun Yuxiang, so in this dynasty Rose can be called the well-deserved national flower. Although everyone knew this illusion, when they saw Concubine Sun bringing it up again, they naturally praised her. Lily was among the crowd, and suddenly someone on the back of her vest pushed her towards her. She had just plotted against Qin Yazi. After that, she had long expected that Qin Yazi might take action against her. Now she was not in a hurry. She took a step back toward Chen, but stretched out one foot to hook her soul. If it were a normal person, of course, being hooked by this hook is nothing to be afraid of, but Lily is different. Her body is so weak that she may die at any time, and her steps are already weak and weak. After being hooked by this hook, she cannot stand steadily today, and her body becomes straight when she is crooked. He was about to fall towards the flowers. This flower bush is full of sharp thorns. If you fall down, you will be injured all over your body. The most important thing is that Sun Gaifei just said what this flower bush means to her. If she falls in, she will smash Sun Gaifei's flowers and plants. Well, I'm afraid a human life may not be worth a flower in Concubine Sun's eyes. In the flash of lightning, Mrs. Chen didn't realize that her daughter was about to fall. The concubine who entered the palace saw it, but at this moment, she didn't dare to interrupt the self-praise of Concubine Sun in front of her. Lily turned her head. When she went to look, she saw Qin Yazi pursed her lips and smiled and retracted her legs. She gritted her teeth and was about to reach out and drag Qin Yazi to fall in together. A figure wearing a bright yellow brocade robe ran out of nowhere. When he arrived in front of her, he reached out and put his arms around her waist. Lily originally wanted to hide, but she smelled the familiar cold breath on her nose. She paused, let herself fall into Li Yangzi's arms and let him hold her securely, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone knelt down silently. Mrs. Chen came to her senses and turned around to see her eldest daughter lying in the arms of the prince who was wearing a four-clawed golden dragon robe. She couldn't help but take a breath. When everyone around them knelt down like a tide, only Li Yangzi and Sun Gaifei, who were holding Lily, and Qin Yazi, who had been stunned for a long time and could not recover, stood there. Prince Chitos. Mrs. Chen trembled and shouted with everyone, and Lily finally came back to her senses. She raised her head and glanced at Li Yangzi. In the bright sunshine, Li Yangzi's long hair was tied up with a golden crown, and two bright yellow ribbons came from him. His cheeks were tied with a knot at his chin and hung down, with jade beads strung at the ends, giving him an air of nobility. The slender eyes that were raised up were as bright as the bright sunshine. He lost his color in front of him. He pursed his lips with a very cold expression. This outfit was no different from the one he wore in the starry sky. Although Lily did not expect that Li Yangzi would have such a high status when he was trapped in the mission this time, but she didn't feel too scared or uneasy, especially after knowing the details of Li Yangzi and the close relationship between the two. She only felt that she was relieved to see such a person who could reassure her in the palace. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 390. The prince is here. When concubine's son saw her son, she showed some inexplicable fear on her face, and walked towards Li Yangzi. Her face did not have the arrogance before, but she seemed to be a little afraid. Li Yangzi rushed. She nodded, then let Lily go, and carefully helped Lily stand firm. Then Li Yangzi said calmly, "Come here to wish you a happy birthday." There was no respect for concubine's son in his tone, but to concubine's son, Ms. Chen and others, this scene seemed to be a matter of course. Lily was a little surprised. Li Yangzi squeezed her hand. When Lily looked at him again, seeing Li Yangzi let go of her hand, she took a few steps back and then turned around and led the people around her away. Qin Yazi's eyes were a little shocked at first, and then her body shivered twice after Li Yangzi left. She glanced at Li Yangzi's leaving back a few times, looked at Lily, and pursed her lips tightly, revealing a look of uncontrollable jealousy. "Come. Everyone, please stand up." Concubine's son glanced sideways at Lily, looked her up and down several times, and then greeted everyone to get up. Ms. Chen glanced at her eldest daughter, hesitated to speak, and bowed along the way. Li Yangzi had just come closer. As a gift from Lily, many people were looking at Lily openly and secretly. It was not until they went to the palace to pay their respects and everyone came to the banquet hall in the palace to sit down separately that Qin Yazi pulled Lily bitterly and asked, "No wonder he was so bold and dared to plot against me. He actually thought he had found a backer." There was reluctance in her tone. She was so fearful in her previous life, but she still ended up in a very miserable ending. When she came back again, she thought she could find her own happiness, but she didn't expect that everything went wrong, even early in her previous life. Qin Beihe, who was about to die, is still alive now. And this time he was against her in every way. This made Qin Yazi feel unspeakable anger, but give up. How could the prince like you? You are not in good health, and you cannot give birth to an heir for the royal family. Lily listened to her whispering resentfully in her ear, and smiled and ignored her. "Please calm down." Ms. Chen was sitting aside. Even though she couldn't hear clearly what Qin Yazi said, she could still see the dissatisfaction on Qin Yazi's face at this moment. She was deeply afraid that her wayward daughter would make a fuss on the spot and sounded like a warning. After giving her a sharp look, Qin Yazi lowered her head in silence. "Miss Qin, in my opinion, was a blessed person at the beginning, and now it is indeed true." Ms. Wang from the Changping Marquee on the other side glanced at Lily. There was still a bit of surprise and uncertainty on her face. She originally wanted to test the relationship between Lily and Li Yangzi, but Qin Yazi opened her mouth and said, "Since Ms. Wang thinks that my eldest sister is a blessed person, why don't you hire her back to the palace for the prince?" As soon as she said these words, Ms. Chen couldn't bear it and gave her daughter a hard squeeze. Qin Yazi gasped in pain, but seemed to give it all, raised her chin and said, "It's true, my eldest sister is born as a legitimate daughter, she is." "Uncle's Hongaiong's Qin family," Li Yangzi's cold voice sounded. Qin Yazi, who had looked arrogant just now, suddenly felt like an eggplant beaten by frost and did not dare to speak again. No one knew when Li Yangzi came over. Before they had time to bow down, they saw him waving his hands, glancing at Lily, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, but soon the smile disappeared again. With a cold expression, he disappeared. He seemed to have just come over to signal everyone not to be polite and then went straight to the stage. When he left, his clothes were fluttering. Lily put a hand on her chin and smiled at Qin Yazi's expression, while brushing the bangs on her forehead. Did not turn around to look at Li Yangzi like everyone else, but instead smiled at Qin Yazi. I don't dare to compare my poor body with that of my sister. Third sister, you are outstanding in appearance, virtuous and virtuous. Who wouldn't like you after seeing you? When Chinyazi heard this, she became furious again. Just when she was about to speak, the old lady of the uncle's house finally couldn't bear it anymore and shouted bitterly, "Okay, if you have anything to say, say it after you go back. It's embarrassing." At this moment, everyone can see that the old lady is already a little angry. Fortunately for Lily, she has always been in poor health and is not favored by the Chin family. In the eyes of many Chin family members, she is almost equivalent to half a dead person. At this moment, she didn't feel how terrible the old lady's words were. Chinyazi felt regretful in her heart. She had been too unsatisfactory in her previous life. She wanted to live a prosperous life in this life. She had more ambitions and naturally had to pay less. She wanted more. She wanted to please the Chin family, and even more so her grandparents. She didn't dare to be like Lily, who only wanted to complete the task and not care about anything else. Therefore, what the old lady said was effective for her. She was half angry to death at the moment, and had no choice but to say yes, and sat down again bitterly. Before the banquet started, the elderly emperor came over. It could be seen that the emperor was in poor health now, and everything had already been decided by the prince. During the dinner, someone served hot soup on the table in the uncle's house one after another, and pointed out the instructions. When the banquet was about to be delivered to Lily, Mrs. Chen hesitated to speak, but did not dare to ask. Finally, after the banquet was over, someone from the palace sent an order, saying that she had been ordered to send the masters of the uncle's residence in a soft sedan chair. Go out of the palace. Li Yangzi had made it so obvious and showed no concern for other people's feelings. Chen and others knew what he was doing, but they didn't dare to ask any more questions. When Lily got on the sedan and left the palace, the sedan stopped at some point. She opened her eyes. Li Yangzi raised the curtain of the sedan and stood outside, stretching out a hand to her. Under the moonlight and stars, his hair was still as silky as it was during the day. He got up, but he had an extra cloak on him. When the night wind blew on him, the cloak was blown back, revealing the bright yellow robe underneath. Lily put her hand in his palm and let him pull her into his arms. The temperature had dropped a bit after night. Li Yangzi pulled the cloak around her body and wrapped her tightly. Lily couldn't help but ask, "Why today? It seems that concubine's son is a little afraid of you." Logically speaking, Li Yangzi is Sun Gaifei's only son in this mission world, so it should be impossible for her to feel scared. There is something wrong with everyone's attitude towards Li Yangzi. It seems that they are too afraid, not like the prince, but that kind of fear is similar to that of the prince. Respect seems to radiate from the inside out. This is the world I created. Li Yangzi straightened her hair that was a little messy in the wind. There was no one around, and the light from the lanterns in the palace corridor not far away brought out a bit of light. Other than that, there was only the dim moonlight and the occasional chirping of insects in the grass. This is a world created by Li Yangzi. No one is qualified to make him kneel down and salute, and concubine's son and others are no exception. Originally, concubine's son was not supposed to have a son in this world, but here he is, if he wants to get a man who can support him with integrity. When she was pregnant, concubine's son had a prince. To people in this world, he was the creator, so everyone was afraid of him, even his nominal parents in this world. When Lily heard this answer, she was secretly jealous. Thinking that she was still scheming with Chinyazi at this moment, she couldn't help but envy Li Yangzi. The two of them were trapped together under the cloak, forming a small world. Li Yangzi held her in his arms and whispered, "I will propose marriage to the Chin family anyway, that's why he came for this mission." So far, the effect seems to be pretty good. Although Lily doesn't have such unforgettable love for him, compared to when he pursued Lily, it's a lot better. Ye Changjin, who had been following for so long, ended up in vain. Li Yangzi was very satisfied with the current progress. He needed to do things step by step and slowly. He could never become fat in one breath, especially for someone like Lily. For a person who has experienced so many missions, she has not stopped for any person in the mission. It is impossible for her to be in a hurry. The trap she dug is not deep enough and the patience is not enough to catch her. When Li Yangzi said this, his face was serious. Lily felt that he made such suggestions just to enable her to successfully complete the mission. Originally, the relationship between herself and Li Yangzi during this mission was unclear. In order to survive, she must have close contact with Li Yangzi. The marriage was just a name change to make it more logical. He nodded without much hesitation, but it was just that the two of them were sneaky in the past. Now that she thought about it, Lily would inevitably be upright and honest in the future. I felt a little uncomfortable. Although it was not the first time that I got married on a mission, it was the first time that I had real physical intimacy. What's more, the person was still Li Yangzi. He was not a person on the mission. It didn't matter if he had experienced it once. Lily thought of what she had said that she would be responsible, and for the first time she felt the urge to regret it. The subtle expression on her face could not be hidden from Li Yangzi. Seeing her eyes flashing now, Li Yangzi showed a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. Before Lily could speak, he pulled her onto the sedan. Go back and wait for me. First news, Qin Bei's original mission, you should keep an eye on it. When it came to the task, Lily's expression was calm, and she quickly showed a serious expression. She put the previous thoughts behind her head and nodded solemnly. After entering the sedan, the little eunuch who had just carried the sedan came back and carried Lily all the way out of the palace gate. The speed was quite fast. While Chen and others were still in the Meridian Gate, Lily was already waiting in the Qin family's carriage. Maybe it was the wind that had just blown, which made Lily's head feel dizzy. When Ms. Chen got on the carriage, she saw her like this and sighed, but she didn't ask any more questions. As expected, it was Li Yangzi's intention to marry Lily as his wife the next day. He was sent to the Qin family. Although Lily, the daughter of the Qin family, had never been in good health, outsiders did not know the details. In addition, the status of the uncle's family was not too bad. Li Yangzi had an inexplicable influence on the world. So things went surprisingly smoothly, and soon the date was set. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 391. At the same time, Qin Yazi's marriage was also decided. After being tricked by Lily that day, she showed her face in front of Mrs. Wang. Mrs. Wang refused to have Qin Yazi, a concubine who was eating from the bowl and thinking about the pot, so she changed her mind. When Qin Yazi was hit, she insisted on quarreling with the Qin family to marry Qin Yazi, their legitimate daughter. Especially after Lily was named the crown princess, Mrs. Wang felt that it would be a sure profit if she could use Qin Yazi to get Lily. He was quite enthusiastic about the deal, which was not a loss, and he went to the uncle's house for several days in a row. This matter was originally the fault of the Qin family. After the people from the Haofu came over to make a fuss, due to the pressure from the Changping Haofu, and Qin Yao did such a shameful thing, now Mrs. Wang is unwilling to give up. In order to settle the matter, Qin naturally, Jia had no choice but to agree. Fortunately, the marriage contract between Qin Yazi and Duan Zheng was settled by his own family, so it did not make a fuss outside. Many people did not know about it. Now that Qin Yazi and Duan Zheng have withdrawn from their marriage, Chen Shi was dragged into another quarrel by the Duan family, and she was mentally and physically exhausted all day long. I heard that the second girl has been making trouble recently about seeking death, and she is shouting about wanting to go back to half a year ago. Recently, the Qin family's house has been as lively as the Chinese New Year. There are always things happening every day, and the days of Lily's divorce and marriage are getting closer and closer. The arrival is getting closer. Ms. Chen has to be busy with her marriage every day, and she also has to meet people from the Wang family and the Duan family. The people in the house are still busy, and they have lost a lot of weight recently. Lily's health has improved a lot recently. After being intimate with Li Yangzi, her health is slowly getting better. She can clearly feel that she no longer walks like she used to fall over when the wind blows. Everyone in the Qin family thinks that this was in response to the comment that she was destined to be wealthy after being 18 years old, but now her attitude towards her has completely changed. At this moment, the maid combing her hair was talking to Lily about the recent events in the house. The news of Qin Yazi seeking death was brought up. Lily couldn't help but laugh. By this time, she was sure that Qin Yazi was reborn. It was just that God had given her a chance to be reborn. If she didn't cherish it, there would be no chance of being reborn again. If Qin Yazi hadn't been too cruel after her rebirth, she wouldn't have been able to. It would have ended up like this. The original Qin Beihe would not have lived to be 17. If she had not treated Qin Beihe as cannon fodder, her fight with Qin Ye would have affected her. Qin Beihe, who would have died, might not have this wish. After all, Qin Yazi brought everything on her own. Isn't it good to marry into the Marquis of Changping? Didn't third sister want to marry Prince Du before? Lily asked the girl casually after letting the girl straighten her long hair. Qin Beihe in the plot didn't know many things because she appeared early and died early. Therefore, as soon as Lily said these words, the girl's movements froze for a while. After a long while, she whispered, "Big girl, everyone knows that the eldest son of the Changping Marquis is more interested in men than women." Lily didn't expect to hear such a sentence, and was slightly surprised. The first time she saw the eldest son of the Changping Marquis, she found that the eldest son looked wrong and had a gloomy complexion. He didn't look like a good person at first glance. The most important thing was that Qin Yazi looked at him with undisguised contempt in her eyes. Because of her unintentional observation, Ms. Wang asked the Qin family to compensate her son. Beihe thought of deliberately putting Qin Yazi and the prince of the Changping Marquis together. Doesn't Qin Yazi like to make decisions for others regardless of whether they like it or not? She also wants Qin Yazi to taste what it's like to be made the decision. She wants Qin Yazi to marry the person she wants instead of marrying her. People who don't like it are because Qin Yazi and Qin Ye suffered a big loss when they first entered this mission. Lily's wish at the beginning was actually so simple, but in the end she didn't expect that what she did unintentionally was even better than she thought. Fortunately, Qin Yazi was reborn but ended up marrying a man who liked Dragon and Yang by mistake. No wonder she was so unwilling and even dreamed of being reborn and going back to the past. She probably just wants to go back to the past and change everything that happened in the past 6 months. Thinking of this, Lily couldn't help laughing. In Qin Yazi's life, she must have had a very bad life when she married Duan Zheng, so she was full of resentment after she was reborn. In the previous life of Qin Yazi's plot, Du Lai knew he must be a person with a bright future and something that attracts Qin Yazi, so she tried every means to marry him after she was reborn. However, starting from the time when she and Duan Zheng broke off their engagement, Qin Yazi made one wrong step, and naturally she made the same mistake every step of the way. She will marry a man she despises in the future, and look at an excellent man she thought she would have the opportunity to remarry. Such torture will accompany her throughout her life, and Qin Lily must be satisfied with venting her anger like this. Because she had solved a task object, Lily's steps were relaxed when she went to pay homage to Ms. Chen. People from the Qin family greeted her respectfully when they saw her along the way. Now that she was going to marry Li Yangzi, her status began to rise. When she came to the Chen family courtyard, the Duan family people were making a lot of noise in the Chen family courtyard. "Stop!" Duan Zheng was also crying and complaining that he had lost his fiancée and refused to give up. Duan Zheng's mother Qin was also the biological daughter of the old lady of the uncle's house. Her palms and backs were full of flesh. The old lady simply threw this mess on Chen's head and ignored her. Chen's scalp was numb every day from the sister-in-law Qin, Lily. When she came over, Ms. Qin was pulling her son to make trouble with Ms. Chen, asking her to give her a daughter-in-law back. And when Lily opened the curtain and entered the room, Qin's face had not yet been wiped with tears. Duan Zheng's eyes flashed with surprise. He originally wanted to go over and lean against Lily with a straight face, but Qin came to his senses. Duan Zheng was spoiled by the Qin family, and Duan Zheng was doted on by the Qin family. Now, those who bully men and dominate women by virtue of their status in the Qin family are uneducated and unskilled, especially when it comes to matters between men and women. After growing up in the past 6 months, the girls in the house had caused many disasters. Ms. Qin had been hiding this matter and did not dare to let Ms. Chen know about it, for fear that she would break the marriage. Unexpectedly, the daughter-in-law she finally got was still missing. Nowadays, Duan Zhengguen is not a man of martial arts, so he will probably live on some inheritance at most in his life. For such a man with an unremarkable appearance and identity, and he is not young at all, where can he arrange a suitable marriage? Just thinking about these things, Ms. Qin was so angry that she brought her son to Ms. Chen every day to vent her anger. "I have met the future crown princess," Ms. Qin snorted coldly and saluted Lily. Then he cried to Ms. Chen again, "Sister-in-law, if you don't give me an answer today, I will go to my father to reason." Obviously it was the old lady who decided the marriage between Qin Yazi and Prince Wang, but now it was Ms. Chen who was bearing the consequences. Ms. Chen was also suffering and could not speak out. When Ms. Qin heard what she said, she was so angry that she looked ugly but could not speak. "And, I have a proposal. I wonder if you are willing to listen to it." Lily thought of Qin Yeu, who had lost her appearance since she fell into the water, and suddenly an idea came to her. Ms. Qin snorted coldly and said reluctantly, "You tell me first and listen to it. Now that my cousin is quite old, we haven't said goodbye yet. I'm afraid it won't be easy to talk about it rashly. Now my second sister is almost the same age as him. Although she is a concubine, she is also from an uncle's house, so she can be like my cousin. It's a match made in heaven." Duan Zheng is not a good guy, he just happens to get together with Qin Yeu. When Ms. Qin heard what Lily said, just as her brows were raised, Lily continued lightly, "I will make up for it in due course. I will ask Niang Duo to prepare a dowry for the second sister." The main reason why Ms. Qin was holding on to the marriage in the uncle's house was that the Duan family had already fallen into decline, and she had just led her son to go to her parents' family. When she heard the word dowry, although it was not the daughter-in-law who was satisfied with the marriage became a concubine, but for the sake of money, she still compromised. After Chen had solved such a serious problem, his expression finally became lighter. Although he was distressed about having to get the money, he didn't feel too uncomfortable anymore. Without Qin Yeu's knowledge, Lily plotted against her and tied her lifelong events to Duan Zheng. She didn't feel guilty at all. All of this was treated as if Qin Yeu had brought the cup of spiked tea to her. She drank retribution. If Qin Yeu had not affected her when she was fighting with Qin Yazi, it would be impossible for Qin Beihe to seek revenge today. The grievances between the reborn girl and the time-traveling girl could just be dealt with by themselves, so why bother hurting others? Cannon Fodder also has dignity, and Cannon Fodder will one day turn around. By the time Qin Yeu knew that her marriage had been decided, it was already half a month later. It was the day of Lily's wedding. The sound of crackling firecrackers covered up Qin Yeu's hoarse cry. Although in fact Lily and Li Yangzi already had an unexplainable relationship, the fact that they were a legitimate couple still made Lily feel a little pressure. Especially when she was sent back to the bridal chamber after the ceremony, she always felt as if she was married to Li Yangzi and would be trapped by him for the rest of her life. In the new house, when Li Yangzi took off her complicated clothes and came out wearing a simple and refreshing robe, Lily was restlessly leaning on the bedside. This situation was actually equivalent to her changing her place to live. There was no change originally, but Lily was inexplicable. She felt nervous, as if having a name and not having one were different after all. Although this time she married Li Yangzi for the mission and to survive, but when she thought that the person she was getting married to was Li Yangzi, Lily can't calm down. This feeling had never happened before. When Li Yangzi saw her nervous look from the corner of his eye, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It's good to know that he is nervous. Knowing that he is nervous means that the scene of the two getting married this time is imprinted in her heart and cannot be erased. He just wants to make Lily unable to forget and let go, so that she will feel uneasy every time she thinks about it in the future. That's when she truly put it into my heart. Have a cup of tea. Compared with Lily's nervousness, Li Yangzi looked calm and relaxed. Lily's whole body was stiff and she shook her head numbly. When she came back to her senses, she found that she was so nervous that she couldn't even speak. At this moment, I felt a little aggrieved again, and forced out a smile, my teeth still chattering. You are so calm. Both of them were trapped in the same mission, but Li Yangzi behaved as usual, as if whether or not they got married this time was just for the mission. Lily originally convinced herself this way at first, but it was easy to do it when she thought about it. It was difficult to get up. Seeing Li Yangzi's cold look at this moment, she felt a little uncomfortable. I'm not calm. Li Yangzi looked back at her and saw that her hands were still placed on both sides of her thighs now. Now her fists were clenched and her back was straight. She couldn't help but slightly twitching the corners of her mouth. Poured health tea and went to feed her. He said his uncool words with a calm expression, and Lily didn't believe it even more. She was focused on Li Yangzi not being nervous or worried at all about the two getting married. I didn't realize how intimate his act of feeding him water was. Until Li Yangzi drank most of the water in the cup with his hand and shook his head to indicate that he couldn't drink any more. Seeing Li Yangzi put down the cup, she breathed a sigh of relief. Can we also get married? Didn't you say you were responsible for me? Li Yangzi asked her back when she heard this. Lily was speechless. She did say she was responsible for Li Yangzi, but the situation at that time was that she was under the influence of drugs and did what she did to Li Yangzi. Something very irrational happened, and the result was that the Lord of the Starry Sky, the man who controlled his own destiny, was trapped in a mission. She just said those words casually in order to survive. She didn't expect that one day she would be slapped by the words she said. What made Lily feel even more desperate was that she couldn't refute it. If she was just the target of the mission, she would be hummed. You don't have to admit it, just like Lu Ji and Li back then. After leaving the mission, the two of them were you and me, but it was not right after they became Li Yangzi. Lily had a vague feeling that she was trapped in a cocoon of butterflies. She could no longer escape the feeling in Li Yangzi's hands, and the word responsible pressed firmly on her head. It meant not only this mission, but more likely after leaving the mission. Thinking of this, Lily suddenly had the urge to slap herself and stab Qin Yeo and Qin Yazi to death. In the swaying red wax palace, Lily leaned softly in Li Yangzi's arms. In fact, getting married was just an extra status. Life was no different from before, it was just a different place to live. Half a year later, Qin Yazi and Qin Yeo got married successively. One was married to the man-loving prince of Changping Marquis, while the other was married to a playboy with no bright future. When Qin Yazi returned home 3 days after the wedding, Lily also quietly went back to the uncle's house. The uncle's house was still the same as when she left, but the whole house was filled with joy. When Lily came back, everyone from the Qin family saluted her one after another, even Qin Yazi, who had just returned, was no exception. He bowed awkwardly to Lily, and the hatred in his eyes was like two tangible swords, almost wanting to poke 2 holes in Lily's body. Prince Wang still looked gloomy. There was no tenderness or sweetness between the newlyweds. They had only been married for 3 days, and their faces were all dull and cold, even mixed with a hint of dislike for each other. In the side room, Qin Yazi pulled Chen into the room and cried for a while. It was not until lunchtime that her eyes turned red. Chen asked the maid to take her down to touch up her makeup. She pulled Lily and sighed. "It's your good fortune. As expected, you survived the 18th century, and now you are rich and powerful, but your sister has a miserable life." While talking, Ms. Jean also brought her son Duan Zheng and her newly married daughter-in-law. Qin Yeo came over. Qin Yeo had been married to Duan Zheng for less than a month, but she was so frustrated that she seemed to have aged several years. Ms. Jean was mean and fierce and not easy to get along with, and she was also very fussy. At first, Lily asked Ms. Chen to accompany her. The thick dowry did not allow her to live a good life under the Qin family. On the contrary, the dowry was snatched away by the Qin family. Her life after getting married was even worse than before she was married. At first, she wanted to act aloof, but Qin had thousands of ways to torture her. Duan Zheng was a romantic, and almost all the maids in the courtyard were not familiar with him. Thinking of living a life of monogamy and mutual love, she thought that her future husband might not necessarily be an unparalleled hero, but at least he shouldn't be like that bear Duan Zheng. Every woman has a Prince Charming in her heart. Qin Yeo never imagined that she would eventually fall into the hands of these ancients whom she looked down upon. She looked down on Duan Zheng in her heart, but she couldn't do what she thought at the beginning. "If you are ruthless, I will divorce you," because she only now discovered that in the world she entered, women did not have the right to divorce a man. When Qin Yeo was pushed forward by Duan Zheng to kowtow to Lily, she was a little unwilling to kneel down, but before she could speak, Duan Zheng and Qin gave her a kick and a slap each without politeness. In front of Lily, a person who does not live up to the past, she was treated like this. Qin Yeo felt a sense of shame in her heart. The chess piece that was destined to die, the little chess piece that was allowed to be drugged by her but did not know how to resist, at this moment, he was sitting high on the chair, wanting to bow down to her. At the beginning, she looked down on Lily very much, especially when Lily said, "Since ancient times, it has been common practice for men to have 3 wives and 4 concubines." Qin Yeo actually laughed at her in her heart. However, she who originally yearned for a pair of children for the rest of her life is now with a group of women. Fighting over a useless husband, the sick man who thought it was right for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines married the current prince, and the prince has not accepted other women yet. Obviously it shouldn't be like this. Lily made a vicious plan for her to marry Duan Zheng. All this was caused by the 2 sisters Qin Yazi and Lily joining forces to harm her. But now Qin Yeo just couldn't tell her the pain. Lily couldn't help but laugh when she saw Qin Yeo's ugly and aggrieved expression. Now Qin Yeo feels the unspeakable feeling of suffering. In the plot, Qin Bei felt the same way when she and Qin Yazi were plotting against her. Now she just wants Qin Yeo to experience the unspeakable feeling of being plotted against. It's just a taste. Lily had seen enough of the ugly faces of Qin Yeo and Qin Yazi all day long. When Li Yangzi came to pick her up in the afternoon, Qin Yeo's eyes lit up when she saw the legendary prince for the first time. She is not a vulgar person of this era. An ordinary person like Duan Zheng is not worthy of her. In her imagination, even if she disdains to enter the palace to compete for the favor of the emperor and prince, but now compared with Duan Zheng, Qin Yeo can't help but have a few feelings in her heart. She regrets it. If she had known that a loser like Duan Zheng would have 3 wives and 4 concubines, she might as well have chosen a prince with a higher status. At least even if she could not have the love of 2 people for a lifetime, at least she could still have the envy of others. Status and glory. It's better than it is now. On the other side, Qin Yazi also had unspeakable resentment in her heart. She came back for a new life to change the tragic fate of her previous life. But she didn't expect that this time she got rid of Duan Zheng as she wished, but jumped into another wolf's den. Qin Yazi resented Lily in her heart. She didn't understand that she was just pursuing her own happiness, so why Lily had to stop her again and again. She had a bad life in her previous life. She died at the hands of Mrs. Jean, a mean mother-in-law. She came back to seek justice, but everything went wrong. Under the resentful glances of Qin Yazi and Qin Yeu, Lily unconsciously showed her affection, and Li Yangzi helped her onto the carriage. When she turned around, she saw Qin Yazi's resentful gaze before she could take it back, and couldn't help but smile. Stand up. These two people have to live in pain in order to atone for what they did. She suffered such a big loss at the beginning, and the trouble she will get into in the future will be endless. If she is not allowed to take a good look at these two people, how could a person's painful and regretful look be worthy of the tangled situation she was in now? A year later, Qin Yeo heard that she was pregnant, but when she was almost 5 months old, she was framed by Duan Zheng's concubine and had a miscarriage. Duan Zheng was a confused person and the wives and concubines in the house had no rules. He fell in love with going to Huajiai Xiang again, and it didn't take long before he squandered all Qin Yeo's dowry. In the end, he got into a fight with someone in Huajiai Xiang to fight for the husband's son, and was beaten to death on the spot. Mrs. Jean thought that Qin Yeo's wife almost died at that time. She was not beaten to death. This matter caused quite a big fuss, and the Qin family was even beaten for it. Li Yangzi personally handled this matter, and the final result was naturally that the Qin family and Qin Yeo were separated from the Qin family. However, Qin Yeo also thought about the plot in many novels in which a sister defected to her sister after her husband died and finally stole her brother-in-law's love. She tried to fight someone who wanted to use her identity as Lily's sister to defect to her, but in the end, she was killed without even seeing Lily's face. After being driven out, Qin Ye realized that ancient people had distinct classes, and many things were different from what she thought. In the past, she only felt that this era was incompatible with her, and did not really want to integrate with the past, nor did she regard the Qin family as her real relatives. So if something happens now, naturally no one will help her. In the Changping Marquis's residence, Qin Yazi's life was not easy either. She had not been pregnant for 2 years, and the Changping Marquis' eyes on her became colder and colder. Her methods of dealing with her were even meaner than when Qin had tortured her in her previous life, but on the surface, she was not pregnant. He looked so generous and considerate, which made Qin Yazi unable to express her pain. Every day when Lily hears servants reporting the fate of Qin Yazi and Qin Yeu, she feels proud and proud. This tone of voice is not only for the original owner, but also for herself. The fight between the time-traveling girl and the reborn girl had nothing to do with her, but in the end, besides Qin Beihe, she also suffered a big loss. Now that she sees the fate of these two people, she feels that it's refreshing. The nun in the East Palace whispered in Lily's ear, Mrs. Changping Hoshaizi is seriously ill. She invited the imperial doctor yesterday. Lily raised her eyebrows, and the nanny whispered. I heard that the prince doesn't like to take the waterway, but insists on using the dry road. Over the past 2 years, he has become seriously ill and has ulcers all over his body. The medical woman is helpless. Being sick in such an embarrassing place, no wonder Qin Yazi endured it for 2 years. When Lily heard this, she couldn't help laughing. Because of this disease, Qin Yazi suddenly became famous in Beijing, and the Changping Marquis was also ridiculed. The Changping Marquis's wife believed that all this was a laughing stock brought by Qin Yazi, and was even more harsh on her. In the past, the situation of 3 people with completely different statuses has completely changed. Lily leaned in Li Yangzi's arms and was very satisfied with her mission. Except for the unexpected incident of her knocking Li Yangzi down, it could almost be said that this mission was perfect. Li Yangzi also felt that it was perfect. He got what he wanted, but the key was that he had not shouldered half of Lily's anger. Until now, Lily, a girl who believed that she must retaliate, had vented all her anger on Qin Yazi and Qin Yeu. He took advantage of Qin Beihe, but did not bear the risk. Instead, he got Lily's guilt for him and her promise to be responsible for him in the future. As a victim, this mission could not only gain Qin Lily the power of the soul, can also solve a problem that is lingering in one's heart, killing two birds with one stone. Thinking of how Ye Changjin chased several plots for Lily and struggled several times in the world he created. Even though he gave everything he had, he still couldn't even touch a hair on Lily. Li Yangzi hugged Lily and squinted her thin eyes. He had long eyes and smiled quietly. To be continued.